What's up, everybody? So we back here with
Whoa.
Damien.
What's
We
going
got Fat
on?
Jesus here.
At Jesus Live. All
This
right.
this is going to be interesting, especially for me, just because of the simple fact that we're going to be talking about pre-creation. That right there is very interesting.
The stuff I'm going to talk about is
Yeah.
pre-creation and mythology, and not any scientific theories at all.
Yep.
Other than I'm going to bring in an ethnographic study when I talk about how 60 different tribes that are hunter-gatherers around the world arrange their stories of day and night, just to understand the facts. So I don't believe in afterlives or gods or spirits or souls.
Why not?
I'm an atheist, and there's a whole bunch of stories about how that happened in school. I used to be Christian. In college, I was going to be a Christian counselor or whatever, but I ended up reading stuff of different religions and also archaeology and science, and understand a class called Understanding the Bible. And halfway through the class, Understanding the Bible, I became atheist. When they got to the place of talking about Satan, Lucifer, the devil, the serpent, where in a sense could be explained as different beings with different natures and different ways of interacting with God, I was done. I literally, like some people go become agnostic and not sure. I just 100% stopped believing in God.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything else. I didn't believe atheists. I didn't know other atheist people. And a lot of the ways I do things, if you see how I teach, is almost nothing to do with how other atheists act or teach or think. Just because I'm trying to be different. It's just because my influence had nothing to do with outside and was all about like me. Like Tyrone, my goal was to actually, I want to know the truth. I wanted to, it was a desire to search. And that's also why I've done so much research into archaeology and culture of the entire world, and languages of the entire world, and DNA of the entire world, and religions of the entire world. Was really, I wanted to understand for myself. And then once I understood and started to feel things, I mainly agree with archaeologists. I mainly agree with historians. I mainly agree with mythologists of how they critique or look at religions and cultures. I don't 100% agree with everything that any of them academics say. I probably 95 or 90, I don't know. A lot, but there's areas where I look at stuff and go, wait a minute, that's not what I feel I'm seeing. So I have my own thing, and it's not, I don't ever try to do it to as an attack. It's just, this is what I see. Just like the mythology, right? So last time we talked about the mythology database, and I like that a lot. And I agree with a lot of the stuff that's in there, not 100%. There's one of the biggest ones I don't, in a sense, agree with is the emergence mythology. Emergence mythology, I feel, is too broad. It's like they group every single thing together that I don't feel inherently is justified. You made a label that's so big, it pretty much covers too much stuff. Because they'll say, if humans coming from the underground is emergence. And I go, okay, great, I can agree with that. Humans coming out of a hole in a tree. Humans coming out of rocks. Humans coming out of plants. Humans coming out of reeds.
Corn.
From the underworld, from the above world. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Does it just mean anything? Because I feel like, to me, if we're going to do what I'm trying to say is the same thing where I feel like sometimes people go, well, there's pyramids everywhere, so they must all be related to everything. Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. And I feel the same thing of looking at mythology. I do want to see if there's true connections. Like we were talking about before the show, how a lot of people don't know that the Greeks are influenced from the Middle East and from Egypt. A lot more than they want to admit. A lot of people think just because the language is Proto-Indo-European and some of Greek is Proto-Indo-European religion related, that somehow that means that is all it is. And that clearly is inaccurate. And so I do want to understand where things come from, how they were influenced, and in an accurate way, not just guess or just assume. Just like a lot of people wonder why Romans took so much from the Greeks. It's not they traveled over to Greek and took their stuff. It's the exact opposite. Greeks went over and conquered southern Italy, and then of course were directly interacting with the people that later became Romans. But that's the kind of stuff I like. I like to know, like, what can we kind of prove, or what is the most reasonable thing? I don't like when things are huge jumps out of the thing, but I do not like when we also do the exact opposite. I hear sometimes academics will say the reason people built pyramids is because stacking stacking rocks is an easy thing to do in a pyramid shape. I go,
I know.
that doesn't explain why they wanted to stack rocks to begin with.
Oh.
When we
Yeah,
know,
you-
like I said
yeah.
before, that, and I almost never hear people talk about it, is the mound of creation. Why did the Egyptians do it? They literally say the mound of creation. That relates to what it's actually in the thing I have today. That relates to this also, because earth diver myths are all over Siberia and all over the Americas, right? At least especially North America, and some in China and some in Hindu also. An earth diver is also relates to this, the same as the Egyptian. And when you hear these stories together, but the Sumerians have also in Babylonians a similar thing where they have, if you take out what's happening, the earth diver is that animals or spirits or something, or sometimes like with the paganism of the Slavs, right? In like Russia and Poland and those areas, they have it where the devil, which works for God, builds a mound of earth out of the water. Well, in the Native Americans, animals do it. In Egypt, it does it by itself, like it just happens. Or it's almost like if the water gave birth to the land. And then that is also very similar to the Babylonians, where the structure of mount that comes out the first land is like a pyramid or whatever. And then the Sumerians is also similar, that the in a sense the wind sort of blows, and then first land appears out of the water when it dries. Now that almost sounds like the Bible, because the Bible talks about the Spirit of the Lord flying over the water of the deep, saying that the entire earth is a water world. It's like flood world. And then when the Spirit of the Lord goes over, then land appears, which is, all these things are very similar. And some people, which I think even the mythologists, I feel, don't put these all together. They put together the emergence of plants, animals, underground. But when it comes to the diver myth, they're like, oh, only Siberia in North America, or maybe Eastern Europe to North America. I'm like, what about the Middle East? What about, Egypt? What about, in India? in ways that don't just, because India also has where the water is broken from a mound of an anthill. So the sacred, in fact, they worship sacred anthills. Interesting enough, if you dig into an anthill, there's water inside the thing that they one is they create their own like humidity, and the other thing is they actually store water for their own needs, which is all an interesting thing. But you can see where this water and mounds is a sort of a universal thing, but even more universal than how the land happens is the water itself. And that's what I want to talk about. That mythology is like 80 or 90% of the pre-creation mythology of almost every creation myth in the world, like how it starts. And then even closer to that, maybe 93%, is that all creation first is darkness, whether there's water inside the darkness or not, because a few don't have, they have, the difference is creation from nothing, which is usually just darkness and void, or creation from something of nothingness, which is this dark void of water substance that then births everything. So, and I think that, to me, that stuff relates to the moon. And we know that at least 34,000 years ago, they were tracking and making little symbols of the moon.
Yeah, the Shango bone. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I always say the women are the first mathematicians because of that.
Well, and I think it relates to birthing. The thought
their
was
menstrual cycles. It was tracking their menstrual cycles, and then the fertility happened at certain points of the time. Yeah, you're right. I know.
Well, because if you look at the new moon is completely black, and then it starts to have a little bit of a crescent, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, like if it's giving birth right straight out of darkness to an observer, someone who doesn't know, what science or anything. So that's why I think that their thinking is that it's all darkness, and then out of the darkness, which, like I said, the nighttime, this moon emerges, and they think that that's how all of, in a sense, the world, even the Bible talks about this, how the original state of the Bible before the water that's on the earth, or the earth itself, is just all pure darkness and void, which is, to me, I think relates to the new moon, where the new moon to the naked eye looks like it's not there. It's gone, or it starts as complete darkness. But I think that it also relates to reincarnation and the souls, because the Milky Way and many many cultures is the path of the souls to heaven, to the stars, which the stars is, or the sun or whatever is considered heaven. So but the Milky Way is hard to see during the brightest moon, but it's the easiest to see at the darkest moon. So the new moon, when it's the darkest, that becomes the brightest in a sense. So you can see, to me at least, I feel there's a connection to how the moon's phases relates to the Milky Way, and then the afterlife. And then because it's just every cycle, like people say, like how, used to say, like in America, is how many moons ago, because the moon, is born, dies, born, dies, born, dies to them. I mean, we know that that's not what's really happening. To ancient people. That's why I said that what I used to feel, because there's like some atheists that feel that religion was being made because of fear of like the natural world or whatever. No, I think that the original stuff, because of how the myths seem to be, it's almost like they're trying, like a scientist sort of. You look at the natural world and then you try to explain what's happening or figure it out. So that's a bigger thing than just seeing it. So I was just giving you like the background to understand. So we're going to go to the paper that I did.
Well, let me, it's interesting you say all that stuff, bro, because a lot of people always talk about the creation, and I know why you don't believe in God, and I understand. I've seen you posted pictures before of you having like signs and sitting out, out on the street and just representing what your belief is and stuff like that.
I did that for 15 years.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that. So I want to say, it's just interesting because when you read the Bible, it does say that there were many earth and many heaven, or depending on what text you read, at least. I mean, they got 66 books all the way up to, plenty more than that. So yeah, I really like this topic right here.
So this is art that I made to kind of explain, my thinking.
Okay.
So pre-creation mythology. These are my, thoughts. Pre-creation mythology. Primordial darkness and water, a chaotic void pre-universe. So that's what the picture has, a moon, but that is a new moon, which is almost dark. And I just put dark water and blackness, because in this mythology thinking, there isn't stars. There actually wouldn't be the moon either, but I'm just putting it there for the heck of it, because it would be either just all black or it would just be black and water. It wouldn't be anything else. So in the new moon, the first lunar phase is when the lunar disk is not visible to the naked eye. It is the dark moon phase, and I think could relate to the mythology of the creation from chaos. And to me, there's two versions, in a sense, I feel, the creation of chaos, from chaos, because chaos to them, just real quick so you understand, is without light. When you have light and the movements, the normal, like stars moving, where they're dependable and where they're at, that they're always there, they're always, and the sun is always every day. The moon is not, because the moon sometimes is a new moon and it's black. So the sun doesn't do that, except maybe in an eclipse. But that would be considered chaos, that time of the eclipse, in a sense. But so chaos is when there's not order, which they see as the universe is order with the light and the sun and stuff. So no sun, no moon would be the time of chaos. And so that relates to creation ex murta and creation ex nihilo. And creation ex murta is the creation happened from some previous substance, which generally is water. Creation ex nihilo is darkness and void, generally without water. But the problem with that is some of the stories that kind of sound like that also kind of mention water in some form. But generally, it's a dark nothingness, a formless, shapeless expanse, a primordial void or abyss, which, in a sense, creates the universe, or the universe is made, which can be described as having a consistency of vapor or sometimes water, that darkness. Then sometimes it's also primordial waters that fill the entire universe. And when it does that, often it's considered a cosmic sea or ocean. Or sometimes also, like in South Africa with the Zulu, it's a primordial swamp. And also sometimes it's considered to be like mud, like the beginning. So to me, this is important to understand.
Did they call it the grandmother moon?
Well, it depends on who you're talking about, because yes, there absolutely was mother moons and grandmother moons, but there's also like the Hazai tribe of South Africa, which are still, in a sense, hunter-gatherers, and they see the sun as a female and the moon as a male, and they hate the moon. They in fact, because they feel they really like the new moon in a sense, because they feel the only time the moon is beneficial is when it's not there. Because when it's not there, they go and they ambush baboons, where the baboons cannot see them in a sense because of the darkness, and it allows them to kill a bunch of them. So they don't.
Don't the baboon, can't they see in the dark? Don't they have the
Well,
ability?
they're like a cat. Cat can see when there's a minimal amount of light, but when it's very dark, no, they have a. Anyways, I'm just making a comment. This is so. Yes, it is in general, just like it's a general thing, not universal, but a general thing that the sun is generally male or no gender. Same with the moon, is generally female or no gender. Sometimes they're two genders, or they're mainly one gender, but they gender switch, where they sometimes have aspects of the other gender. And then, like I said, there's other times when they are considered to be, like when the Great Spirit sometimes is considered to be the great mystery, or in a sense not having a gender because it's not even personified. But yes, the grandmother moon, right? Yeah, I'm agreeing with you that most of the time that it's a female, but it is not universally female.
Yeah,
So
even in Mesopotamian and Egyptian beliefs, it's either male or female, just depending on who it is. It's always been male or female, always.
well, or dual gendered or no
dual,
gender.
yeah. But the Earth has always been female, from what I understand. So,
Well, no, because in Geb is the male in mound of creation, or Earth
then the
in
turtle too.
Egyptian, and it's male.
Yeah.
So, but even Egyptian is like the four different main cities don't have 100% similarity to their beliefs. We think of them as like one whole area and they all believe the same. That's not true. Same with Hinduism. People often say Hinduism, but the term Hinduism is more like a Europe term than the Vedic religion peoples that were there before the Europeans showed up. So it's important to understand that religions evolve. They don't like they're not like this fixed thing. Almost any point in time, almost anywhere in the world you point, it's constantly evolving. Christianity evolved. Like if you look at pictures of Jesus the first century, he has short hair, no beard. He looked kind of young looking, and carries a wand, and does miracles with a wand or something. But then later they wanted him to be more masculine, and so they make him with a beard, and then the culture has long hair, so then it becomes long hair also, and then a wand seems too much like magic or something. They stop showing pictures of him with a wand. But if you think about it, the cane or a wand was even in I think it's Moses, when he uses his stick and he taps the rock and it makes the water come out. He's using it like a wand. You ding, you do something, magic happens because of the stick touching it. But anyways, so my point is, I'm saying things constantly change. And so what I try to do is to figure out, if we can look at all these myths and see similarities that show deeper, older connections. That's something that interests me.
Yeah, they shared the same thing through Chinese Taoist healers, Egyptians, and also it says right here the ancient Celtic, Anglo-Saxon pagans also share about the dark moon as well. It's like that's a thing around the world. It's not just one culture in one section of the world. This is like a worldwide event that they really believe in this. Even indigenous people as well, they have this belief as well. And how does everybody around the world, and this is the thing that strikes people, how does everybody around the world communicate back then to believe this, or this was natural, built inside their head, in their dome here, in their mind, to believe this?
Well,
this
I would
already
say
pre-recorded.
Well, I would say that, I don't think it's pre-recorded in their head. I think that there's two things that happen. One is that people move. And when they move, they take their brains with them. So if they had pre-existing beliefs and go to a new area, they take it with them. The other thing is that environment alone changes even pre-existing beliefs. So even if you have, like, say if you have a belief in volcanoes and you go to somewhere that's a flat desert, you may still keep a mountain belief, sort of, but you're probably going to look for some hill or something in the area and probably don't have the fire belief anymore. It's going to change. You could see this happen like in Egypt.
If you got a lot of rain, you got a rain god. If you got a lot of fire,
right. If you have a desert,
god.
right? Yeah. So things So yes,
Yeah, you're in
I
the
feel
desert.
like,
You got the sun god.
well, yeah, it becomes a different focus. You may care about the moon too, because most people that travel care about the moon. Most people that are fixed in one area and need agriculture care about the sun. So there is a connection also to environment affecting what religion, because let's just say 4 or 5 different ideas could come by. The one that sticks with you is going to relate somewhat to your environment more than just, because even like say Christianity or Islam or Buddhism, when it goes to different areas and they have sort of different needs, it changes. The Buddhism in India is different than the Buddhism in Japan. It's not like 100%. And the Buddhism that went down to Indonesia, which later became Islamic, but the stuff that went down there was also different. So because you're and then also what happens is, even if you have a pre-existing belief that moves, there's they that already went before had pre-existing beliefs that then mixes with, like the Greeks. You have all these sources coming in, and then they have their pre-existing one. They try to kind of fit it into what they already kind of believe. So that, like I
Did
said,
the Greek have multiple religions, multiple beliefs, or did they have like I mean, I don't know if you know, so I'm just asking. Was there like a main religion for the Greek, or it was a bunch of multiple religions? I assume there were multiple religions, but maybe you know more.
Well, I mean, so whenever you talk about, like I said, about like say even the Egyptian religion or even Sumerian religion was broken up into city-states that had their own city-state god. So the same thing is sort of the case in most areas. Like I was saying, yes, they did generally have a grouped religion. Certainly under the state itself, the state religion is always, in a sense, whether it's Egypt, the state religion of Egypt, or the state religion of Rome, or the state religion of Greek, or the state religion,
Interesting.
in Babylon or something. They're going to have
China has a
or
state
China.
religion.
The state, yes, the state religion of China
they
is
do.
going to be different because they're saying don't be shamans, where the people in the outside areas are like, yeah, I'm going to be shaman anyways. So I mean, and the same thing even with the Bible, that if you look at when Israel became, in a sense, a state power, the scholars are writing the Bible, but the people in the outside areas still are practicing at least one more God, and have God has a wife, where that's not really in the Bible per se. Yeah, so you're correct to understand that there kind of is a group religion that everybody kind of shares, but yes, almost always there was always people who had their own thing. So it's
I grew up Catholic, and it's hard for me to believe that God has a wife. Whenever I hear that, it's kind of like a red flag for me, because I was indoctrinated into that religion. So if somebody has a God that has a wife and having children, to me already, I'm thinking, well, that God sounds human, So that's what I'm thinking right off the bat.
Well, yeah, it just depends on how you're culturally done. But anyways, going back to the stuff for my talk, like I said, I was going to read you the thing about how the daytime and nighttime is different in hunting-gatherer cultures, to understand where this idea could have come from. So day talk, they did a research, and day talk is centered on practicalities and gossip, where the night firelight activities centered on conversations that invoke imagination. Night activities steer away from the tensions of the day to singing, dancing, and religious ceremonies and enthralling stories. For 60 hunter-gatherer societies, so they studied not just one, there is a mention of ceremonies held by firelight involving song, dance for celebration, healing, imagination, mourning, fertility, and other purposes. Song and dance bonds group through rhythm and, in a sense, in many cases, altered states of consciousness. Because if you dance for a long time, you can start feeling altered state of consciousness, even if you don't take drugs. And just like when they run a lot, they feel like the runner's high or whatever. So nighttime was a prime time for the entrance of imaginary worlds of the supernatural. So if you already understand that how cultures think in general, that the nighttime is when magic is happening, and then the nighttime is when you're looking at the stars that are not there during the day, and the moon that's doing all this unique stuff that the sun doesn't exactly do. You can see how these things would be put together. In the night gatherings by the fireside, where darkness has fallen, the moon, and in a sense the starlit sky, awaken the imagination of the supernatural, as well as of the vulnerability of benevolent spirits, predators, antagonists centered by security and members. Body language is dimmed by firelight, which is important too because you can't really see how people are interacting or feeling or reacting to you. So you feel, in a sense, by firelight often more cut off than you would during the day when you can see people and, see how they're reacting to what you're saying. And awareness of self and others is reduced. So facial expressions and the flickering flames are often softened. In the case of fear and anguish, are not articulated the same. Indigenous Tlingit, which are the Pacific Northwest Coast indigenous people, use stories to recount that extend for 4 days with fires blazing up to 6 to 7 feet high. Narratives told by firelight at night induce a gradient of tales of people known for events and to legends based on past known events, to folklore about humans and animals, to myths that address the origins and order. And to me, that's important because myths of origins are what I'm talking about. In most hunter-gatherer societies, firelit hours drew, in a sense, aggressions of individuals who were foraging out the day to provide time for adventures such as virtual communities, whether human or supernatural, via stories and ritual. Stories convey unifying cosmologies, and cosmology is like how things start or the order of the world. The chart for rules and rights of governing behavior. And then this is my statement. In mythology, darkness represents more than a mere absence of light by symbolizing the primeval void before the creation of the cosmos and the origins of the cosmos. Ancient cultures viewed darkness as sacred, creative, and destructive force. Like I said, chaos. Often personified as primeval phenomenon or beings who exist long before the first light. In Greek mythology, chaos refers to the primordial void that existed before the creation of the cosmos. The term, derived from the Greek word meaning abyss or gap, signifies a formless state characterized by emptiness and darkness. The concept of chaos symbolized not just the absence of order, but the potential for creation, with Eros often recognized as the force that brings divine order to this void. Chaos is explored as both physical space and a metaphorical state of disorder preceding the emergence of the structured universe. And when they mean structured universe, like I was trying to say before, how the sun always follows the same path, how the stars are always in the same spot, and sort of, where you could, like the Big Dipper or whatever, even though they move around a little bit, there's an order to even how they move. You can predict it. So also in ancient Greek mythology, chaos, as the first primordial god to emerge at the dawn of creation. And it was the first primordial god. She was followed quickly by a succession of Gaia, Earth, and Tartaros. By the way, I'm not good at pronouncing words, so don't
even trip, because I do it all the time. I have a book series called What I've Learned from Reading This Book, and I can tell you right now, I run into words that I chop up all the time. I even do the boots on ground. When I read the little historical markers, I read it just like I do. I mean, anybody that faults anybody for reading something, everybody has a trouble with some type of language, even in their native language, how to pronounce things. So I don't even look at it like that.
Right. All I'm just trying to say is that I know a lot, but it doesn't mean I can pronounce words.
Yeah, I know. I be doing the same thing, bro. Trust me.
I wanted to bring up that in anthropology, that you don't need drugs to have a feeling of endorphins or dopamine to be flowing in you. Just the excitement and the dancing and the enjoyment itself. This has existed throughout history. So when they're doing the dancing, the drumming, and all that stuff, it is a drug itself, and it induces inside. And it's proven even today in the churches. I even joined a church that does that a lot at one time, and just experienced that endorphin. It was an incredible experience, and it's interesting.
Well, yeah, and I agree, the physical activity, but also just like just being around a whole bunch of people people just that are sort of like connected or
Yes.
feel they're connected itself. We have this thing called mirror neurons where we, in a sense, feel like a group think when we're around people or a feeling of connection. So all that stuff definitely doesn't need drugs.
It's hypnotic. Yeah.
It's hypnotic, right? Exactly. And we all even say that group think or that there's thinking like the masses or something. Yeah, because it can take madness of the masses. It can take over us, and we do things we normally wouldn't thinkingly do. But my point of why I brought it up is that I don't like how I feel some people feel that religion required drugs. This is not accurate. Even shamanism, people sometimes act like all shamans are taking drugs. Some did. Altered state of consciousness is common in shamanism. Drugs are not. There are some that do drugs, but that's not the only way, because they also do sweat lodges which is not drugs. Right. Well, like I said, my thing is that I want people to understand religion accurately, not inaccurate. And I feel like it's easy for people just to say, well, those people are primitive and they did this. But I try to show a lot of these people are not primitive and their thinking isn't always, to me, wild and crazy. It's often, like I said, the more you understand it, more like they're trying to understand the world, which actually is more intelligent than later just making stories, in a sense, or how people feel. But anyways, going back to the thing. So chaos in the Greeks is related to the air or sky goddess, right? Because it's the night sky. It's, in a sense, she's also the mother of birds. This is important too, because like Siberian and Eastern Europe, birds are considered often to be traveling the path of the Milky Way and often carry spirits with them, like the Valkyrie, which is the more Nordic, or Viking stuff. So for the Greeks, though, the earth was the mother of the land animals. And then the goddess, in a sense, of the sea was the mother of fish. But anyways, chaos was the lower atmosphere which surrounds the earth, both in a visible air and the gloom or fog or mist. And see, this, like I was telling you, that the night sky or the sky above the earth, right, which that's when you look at the night sky, and relating to the pre-creation sometimes is considered darkness and empty, but like it says here, the gloom of fog or mist. So the invisible air still isn't substanceless, in a sense. Even though, like I said, sometimes how they explain it, that everything came from nothing. It's nothing, sort of, like, because it's not. So my point is, sometimes it's water, which is a distinctly substance, where they see mist or fog as kind of like in between, not really exactly, or vapors, not really exactly water, but not really, 100% nothing. Just to help you understand, that's why I'm adding this. So chaos, in a sense, means the gap or chasm, being the space between heaven and earth, which often relates to, which I'm not going to talk about, but which the Bible does talk about, but other Near Eastern mythology also, and Egypt, talk about, which is the firmament, that thing, the bubble of air or whatever that holds the space water, above the earth.
That tend to make a comeback, didn't it? Now that we're back in 2026, a lot of people are starting to advertise the firmament and that the earth isn't round, right?
Yeah, well, because the earth being flat and the firmament went together, and the water of the space and the water in the earth and the water below, because the firmament doesn't, in other words, some people just see that, like a lot of times, like a picture, they'll show the firmament on a picture is like the flat earth and then a dome over it, when the real conception wasn't that. So I'll share a picture.
It's wild because they look into the night sky and every planet is round, but Earth.
Yeah.
For them.
That shows that the logic is not real.
I brought that up one time to some guy, and he said to me, "This is no shit. This is what he said to me. He said, you don't build a house from the roof down." And I was like, "What does that have to do with with every planet out there supposedly being round and Earth is just flat?"
Squinting at that, I'm like, what the hell?
So this right here is showing the Bible cosmology, or the Bible understanding or explanation of how Earth and the rest of the universe, in a sense, was, because it relates to what I'm talking about. It also relates to, like, when some people talk about the Anunnaki being from water. This is explaining, sort of, also similar to the Sumerian stuff, what it means. Because if you notice, the water is around the whole thing. So in other words, the flat Earth is floating floating in the celestial water or celestial ocean. But it itself, the firmament, is where you see the sun, the moon, the stars, the clouds. That stuff is inside the firmament. And then the shoal often could be considered Abzu, in a sense, for the Sumerians, more than the great deep. The great deep would be something almost different, but shoal is taken in a sense from the sort of Sumerian idea of the inner sea, because Abzu, which relates to the Anunnaki, which would be kind of like shoal, is like the subterranean water, meaning the water inside the thing that is Earth.
Why is flat Earth so difficult? It's so much more difficult in belief than around Earth. I'm gonna be straight up with you, because
I don't believe it.
Think about it. Yeah, but just the thought is so much harder. I mean, it's like getting on a treadmill and putting it on extremely hard and not be able to complete the task. It's the same thing with flat Earth. It's like you're not able to complete the task with the whole idea of flat Earth. There's just so many unanswered questions. But when you have round Earth, it's like, okay, this makes sense.
Well, I'll tell you what, before we go from that subject, I have a book about that, actually. So we'll go over that in the future. I actually have a book that goes over with scientific data on why the Earth is flat and not round. I'm not saying I'm a flat earther or anything, but like I said, I've read many books, and when I have these questions, I look for these answers, and I found the answers. So we'll go over that in the future. But we'll go over that in the future.
If you got scientific proof of flat Earth, that means science is flawed.
No, hold up. No,
we have scientific proof for anything.
Don't even talk about that right now, because I'm telling you, it gets deep. It gets deep, and I'm telling you.
So this, like I was trying to explain to you, do you see how the cosmic water is both on the bottom and on the top, right? It's a complete circle around the flat Earth itself.
Yep. Yeah,
so this is why I was trying to say that people need to understand that Abzu is a part of Nanu, which is the cosmic water ocean. But it's probably how it's explained in Sumerian. Probably Abzu was born inside of the cosmic water. In other words, to understand like what I'm trying to say for the pre-creation. Pre-creation is darkness for Sumerians and the substance of water. That would be the cosmic ocean, or Namu, the female deity that's the ocean water, the creator of everything, all gods, all land, all everything, and self-created, no other husband, wife, nothing. So that right there, but once the earth and stuff is created, Abzu is created, because then there's above, which is still her, and then the below, which now is related to Abzu, which is where the Anunnaki come from, in a sense. Below or subterranean. It doesn't show it here because actually she could have been, or Abzu could be like inside the earth itself, not just the bottom below. Because generally the bottom below the earth is considered like the underworld. And that's also why people think that if you go to the underworld, you end up in heaven. That thinking is related to the water, because if you go to the water underworld, it is all connected to the upper world. There isn't a separation. In fact, even your Kralic beliefs, they believe that the water, that you bury someone like in the water, they end up in heaven. They don't, just like people think if you bury people in the ground, they don't stay in the ground. Maybe their bones do, but the spirit goes up into heaven. So it's a similar related thing. So and the reason that they think that the water is because, like I said here, you can see the water isn't disconnected. It's one whole unit. So it's trying to show you like a side view, in a sense, instead of like a more of a top view. They would just see, the flat earth more distinct. So it's just, but like you were saying about the dome, a lot of people show a flat earth with the firmament dome. Yeah, the firmament dome, but that doesn't mean there's not water below the earth as well. This also has what people say, well, how does a turtle, in some mythology, carry the earth? Well, the turtle carries the earth because the turtle, here I'll show you, is floating in the water, because it's all about the water was the first substance. See, the turtle is floating in the water. So you don't need because some people say how many turtles down is, there is no turtles down. The turtle itself floats in the water. The land is on top of the belief I'm talking about. The land is on top of the turtle. It's the same thing why I show a spider, a tree, and a bird, because they also have often the axis mundi, or the center world tree, but it's not a separate thing. It's part of the turtle and the land, which is the mound of creation, and then the often the sun in some mythology of Native Americans is related to the spider, like even the Otobi, the myths in the Great Lakes. lakes where the dream catcher comes from, the idea we're talking about originally, is relating to all this kind of stuff. This is, in a sense, grandmother spider, which also there is Algonquin languages, that at least two, that the spider is considered the spider of heaven, and the spider of heaven is the great spirit. So, and I actually have a picture of that too, just because I know people haven't always heard of some of the things that I say, but I've done a lot of research. So that's what I was saying, is I see connections sometimes people don't see. So this right here, this next picture shows the great spirit, right? So Gross Ventura, that they were in that area, that little red circle, about 3,000 years ago. All the other Algonquin languages, which that's what the one on the right hand side in the top, that's showing the dispersal of Algonquin languages. All of them originated from the Pacific coast, and the earliest one, or one of the earliest ones, is the one there, that red circle. But they go all the way to New York and all the way down Virginia, even North Carolina, and so. But all of them originated from their language from the Pacific coast, which is Alaic languages. And Alaic languages today are that little blow up I have of California, where it shows there's two languages there that are Alaic, and all the other ones are Algonquin. And one of those is a little red circle. One of those, the Wilcott, they have a great spirit. And then everywhere on this map that I have a round circle that's red, and black, is a tribe that believes in the great spirit. Everyone that has a diamond also has a great spirit, but the different sort of name, but it just shows that they're all the same. And then the ones that are circled in yellow, those tribes also have a great spirit. So it shows the great spirit is pretty much all related close to the areas that are Algonquin. And I feel that the idea comes from the Pacific Northwest down to, from Alaska, from the Tlingit down the area, down to between Oregon and Washington, and then, which is the Alaic, and then goes over all the way to New York and east. And that is all those Algonquin languages, and almost everywhere they go, every group, which I show a breakdown in the bottom left-hand side of Algonquin languages, and show those red things are showing how many groups have a great spirit. Anyways, just to show that which is my thinking, is that religion is a cultural product, and it moved in cultural migration. And so that's what I see, in a sense. And that's what I'm trying to show, is that when you look at how the ideas present themselves, you can tell that they've been moved around. So go ahead and add the blog back. So so moreover, the ancient Greeks' primordial deity represents the personification of darkness, particularly associated with shadowy realm of death in the underworld. Once again, because it relates, in a sense, that darkness, the nighttime, and the water relates also to the underworld, because it's both the above and then below. And Greek cosmology, darkness was often linked with the afterlife, where the souls journeyed into the depths of the underworld, a place. What's that?
No, I was saying the map that you showed earlier, was that was before Europeans came to the Americas?
Well, the map I showed is once I don't know exactly what their beliefs 100% were before Europeans came. They didn't have writing. All of those things are showing when the Americans or Europeans, it wasn't just Americans, Europeans showed up, and they categorized what groups were believing what things. That is how the dispersal of the groups beliefs.
Yeah, because I was writing a paper on that, where the indigenous people were being pushed around by the colonial Americas from their respective nations across America, and they were, let's say, for instance, I was writing about North Dakota, and how North Dakota had their own group, but then so many of the other indigenous nations were being pushed into North Dakota, and that wasn't even their natural habitat. And it seemed like they were trying to push Christianity or the schools, and then they were making them all to become farmers, and to stop them from being hunters or even having that ability to fight,
America's was terrible. America took away their language, made them cut their hair, dress different. I mean, what America did was
they called it modernizing the indigenous.
Yeah, but just think, you can't even speak your own language. I mean, what does that have to do with Christianity? Nothing. The fact that you have long hair or not, that literally has has nothing to do. I mean, so my point is, you could be a long-haired Christian. I mean, you could be a Christian that speaks a different language. I mean, it was cultural bigotry hidden in Christianity, values or whatever. But to me, real Christian values never would have been that.
Yeah, and they did that in the past, and they continuously did that even with black slavery as well.
Oh,
even
absolutely.
into modern times. And we showed that piece of paper how they were changing laws, and they did that like in the 1800s, 1700s, like all the way back. So they and I'm not saying white people in specifically. I'm talking about people with knowledge in how to make laws that would work for themselves, so that they can have control over minorities or people they would call savages, so that they can have slaves, or be in control of people so they can have land for themselves.
Well, yeah, but I do see it as largely a white problem. That certainly is more of the case than it is that.
Well, it's a culturally because it's passed down from generation to generation. It's taught.
Yeah, but I'm saying it is more largely a white problem than it is an indigenous problem, or even like you said, people that are not whites. People that were not whites did not go around and force everybody. But then again, depends on what you mean, because like the Romans, even though they went around, they didn't have the exact same thing of forcing other people to learn only their stuff. So I mean, it's more of an imperialism,
They took over the countries like by force.
Right, but I'm saying is right because but I'm just saying it's a white problem, but a certain time and a certain behavior. It wasn't like that was always what all white people did. Even the Vikings didn't take away everybody's culture. So I'm just that's a new thing, because it has to do with wanting to be superior, which I feel
the Romans call it conquering.
Yeah, but even when they conquered, they allowed Romans took
what I'm saying is that they called it conquering because they made the rules and regulations, so they made the definition matter. You know what I'm saying? Like they called it conquering because they're the victors. But if they were the losers, it wouldn't be called conquering.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to make, is that they are the ones writing the laws. Whoever is writing the laws are the ones that are pushing for that to happen. And that's a horrific part.
But they weren't I'm just saying about whiteness. They weren't as limited as, say, colonial America when it came to citizenship. Citizenship to a Roman was a cultural idea, not a racial one. You know what I'm saying? Like, because certainly, look, ask the Cherokees. Since they were one of the first supposed, tribes that were not just them. There's the 5 what they call what is it called? I'm showing you a picture. This is the civilized 5 civilized tribes, but that's because they all, in a sense, if you can see the pictures, they all took on European clothing. So it was a cultural thing. You had to become, in a sense, European-like to be considered civilized, have similar behaviors that were conducive to the European colonial goal. You couldn't just say you're an American and stay the same. You had to become what they wanted. So, but that's not exactly this becoming a Roman. But so going back to the Romans, they considered, whoever became Roman to be sort of Roman. You could follow Roman laws. But the government of America, how we treated the supposed people that were the civilized tribes, like the Trail of Tears, and kicking them out of their land, even though they had already become supposedly civilized and Europeanized, and were able to write and read and do all these things that we said, that's what gives you citizenship. And they tried to take the government to court, and the Supreme Court and stuff did not, have the power to rule in their favor, or the desire of the larger culture to support their goals. Because supposedly, and they had become Europeanized, which they kind of had, they should have been able to stay in their land, but that they didn't. I'm just saying, showing that how they were treated was not how, in a sense, the Romans would have done that exactly. Anyways, I'm not saying the Romans are good. Romans also were terrible as fuck too. I'm just making the comment that there is a difference.
But if you got gold on your land, it doesn't matter how Christian you are.
Yeah. Well, Chris, like I said too, I don't think even though I'm not a Christian no more and I don't support it, I do think there's a difference between what the Christian religion is and then people that do things, especially horrid things, and are Christian. That's not. I don't see that as like the same thing. You could say, well, Hitler was a Christian. I mean, he was, or you could say that he's a pagan.
He started
Some
off
people
as
try to say he
Jewish,
didn't believe
right?
at all. But I feel like that what someone does isn't the faith itself. They use the faith as like a reason to justify their own wanton bullshit, because you can point to people that have faith and are great people, and people that don't have faith and are great people. Whether or not the faith and how people are great or not great really has to do.
Yeah, what you was just talking about. You said that you was Christian. You wanted to be you was going to be a Christian mentor. Aren't you like? Don't you help people with alcohol and stuff like that? Like, aren't you like a mentor for that right now? So you didn't even need religion to accomplish that goal, right?
Well, and also I would say that I try to be a mentor for kindness and for understanding, and that, like, and also I try to reach out to people in a thoughtful way. I mean, because like I was saying about me being different than other people that are atheists, other people that say, well, they're extreme atheists. I'm an extreme atheist, but it doesn't equal that I feel that I'm a better person or that I should be allowed to act in some horrid way. I feel the exact opposite. I want to be a good person, not have anything to do with being an atheist, just because good person is a good thing to do. And so I feel a unity with anybody. And I say that even though I'm a far leftist anarchist, but I say all the time, every Sunday almost, I say that I welcome all good humans. I don't classify that you have to be leftist or anarchist or that you have to be atheist or I don't classify other than you need to be a good person. That to me is the quality that I want to, as you said, in a sense, mentor. We should be good people. We should be good people regardless of of anything. Mm-hmm. That should be a goal of all people that are good people. Whether you have faith or not have faith, that should be the goal. Yeah. And that's also why, to me, that we all should desire the truth. We all should desire to be educated regardless of our thinking, because I feel that's what good people do. Good people care about things that are beneficial. Education is beneficial. And so that's also why I guess I try hard to explain the religions in a non-offensive way, in a sense, because the best way to understand something is not through like going to George Carlin and hearing people tell, mean jokes about it, but to actually do research. And when you go to a college course or something, they're not going to be throwing in jokes and saying mean stuff or whatever. They're going to help you understand. The best thing to me is that I believe in people's ability to reason. That means it is not my goal to teach you to think a certain way. My goal is to help you learn how just to think in general, to reason, to assess what's coming in. Because I'm also willing to, and I have also been wrong. I'm willing to be shown wrong because I have reason. And reason tells me I'm not universally, some arbiter of never-ending truth. The truth sometimes is a vantage point away from losing credibility when you find other reason and evidence to relate to. And that's my goal, is to help people think and help people know what the truth is so that you can think. And so anyways, going on from this stuff, we're talking about the Greeks, right? And then we're going to now talk about the Bible. The concept of light and dark holds profound symbolic and theological significance across various religion traditions, used as metaphors of creation, morality, and the nature of existence. In Judeo-Christian, which is in a sense Jewish-related Christianity, the first creation narrative begins with a void, which is like I talk about void and darkness, because it was also lightless, described as formless and empty, over which darkness was over the surface of the deep. And so when it's talking about the surface of the deep, it's talking about the Earth's ocean, like I was talking about. And then
the word depths would be used for that too sometimes, right? DEP.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, originally it was not written in English, so yeah. There's a lot of versions of just say this certain thing, but I'm just giving you the general, gist of what they're talking about, because you can hear the dissimilarity. Into this void, God introduced light. Of course, this was not the sun, by the way, declaring, "Let there there be light. But light wasn't created in the sun itself, as far as the Bible is concerned, until the fourth day. So this is before that. The stars maybe not the moon, because later it says sun and moon are made on the fourth day. But I'm just making a comment that when they say the light, it could be something that they're referring to. Anyways, it separates the light from the darkness. And sometimes also, like I was saying to you before, you can see this as the light being order and non-chaos, and the darkness being the pre-existing chaos without order. And then the initial act of creation was distinct from the later creation of the celestial bodies of the sun and the moon on the fourth day. In the Sumerian cosmology, the primordial void and original origin of all existence was Namu, the primordial sea and mother of everything. And then that's also with the Babylonians, they call it Tiamat. But the biggest difference between her and Tiamat, even though they're very similar, is Tiamat was more antagonistic sort of monster, or creates monsters, where Namu was more motherly and kind sort of, anyways, but they're very similar. And they're both relating to the primordial sea, so the same thing. And Abzu was existing within, alongside, and created out of Namu's cosmic ocean. Namu is a significant feature in Sumerian cosmology, often referred to as the mother of everything, and known as the goddess of the primordial sea, which, like I said, is actually the night sky, or this all of the universe, pre-existing everything else. And then afterwards, it's what everything floats in a sense. She embodies the riverbeds and the fertile marshes of ancient Mesopotamia, showing that she's also both in the sky and on the land. So some people think that she's limited to just the outside water of the firmament, when the firmament is something that happens. So how you'd understand this, why she could be in both places in a sense, is because when the firmament happened, before it happened, the water would have been laying on the earth itself from the sky. There would have been no separation.
Were they related to the planet? Are they related? I was asking a question. Are they related to the planets? I mean, have they given them planets? Some ancient.
You mean at the time that they were talking here? No. Well, first off, to me, planets for Sumerians wouldn't have really been, they thought stuff was basically moving stars. What they focused on wasn't really the planets themselves. They thought that a lot of that stuff was stars, including like Venus. So Venus is considered to be the morning star, which is, they thought was also the sun, or it was what brings the sun up into the sky. So the morning sun and evening sun were not considered to them the sun. That's because they didn't, like I said, so they didn't understand planets as in like separate places that land was on or something. They saw the world a lot differently cosmologically. Now, when you get to the Greeks, for sure, they started understanding stuff or calling things, and the Babylonians too, because that's more when you get astrology, where they're really trying to figure stuff out more. The origin probably starts in Sumeria, like of astrology ideas, because they're caring about what the moon and the sun are doing, and about the sky and the stars. So it's kind of starting, but it's at a level where they're not really being as much scientific. They're just sort of seeing stuff and trying to figure it out. But anyways, so understanding that this primordial thing in Mesopotamia was considered the primordial creator, giving birth to the heaven and the earth, as well as humankind. But see, when heaven and earth were considered almost like yin and yang, how it's mixed together, how it's like one circle, that's more of a better understanding of how they saw heaven and earth, because heaven and earth to them at first wasn't separated. It was together. And so that's what I'm trying to say. When you understand that her waters lay on the earth and are also space itself above the firmament, it's because the firmament happened later. Here's a picture of the earth and the sky in a sense as one being, where the earth is a female and the sky
there's your flat earth.
Right. Yeah. So, and then it's kind of like one being, though. It's because the sun or the sky is resting on a temple on top of the earth.
Hey, maybe that's where we get our Garden of Eden right there, the idea of flat earth.
Well, Garden of Eden, yes, is definitely related to Sumerian beliefs and agriculture. So this right here, it explains, in a sense, the understanding of it. It's one thing. So when the firmament happens, is it pushes. So in other words, the old belief is the water of space was laying on the earth. And then it took an air bubble bubble or the god air, or like in the Bible, the god is the wind or breath, makes the firmament, similar beliefs. So it makes the bubble of air. So the bubble of air is only, or the firmament is only on the flat earth itself, and not inherently, on, which I'll show you a picture, but is not, all around. It's not like a bubble around the earth. Here's a picture of the flat earth with an air bubble just above it. So that's the firmament in a sense. So that's the belief. But everything that is in a sense floating in would have been considered water.
We got the sun rolling around on a bubble. Looks like
yeah,
a marble.
That's the belief. But like I said,
I think it's cool. It was real. That would be something wild.
Yeah,
I wonder what the physics is on that.
Here, I have a picture of the round Earth as opposed to the flat Earth and the sun. I make a joke that the cat.
I just want to know how we're going to get the Mars from here.
So the flat Earth, the cat would have knocked everything off.
Yeah. I see. So there was a giant cat.
Right. If there was a giant cat, right. Well, so the point though is that this is not like a one-off. It's not that one culture has this flat Earth and then the water around. It's actually close to universal in most of the. I have a picture of that.
There's a belief that giants did exist before humans, and that the reason why we have mountains is because of the giants. They're the ones who built.
Well, there's
everything.
different beliefs of how we have mountains. One of them is giants. That's not the only. There's also a belief that dragon was killed and made the mountains, and also
there's that too.
There's a couple different ways that mountains happen in beliefs. But anyway, so this right here shows a group of different beliefs that all really have a flat Earth, and they all have similarly. They're floating the concept. And then they all have sort of a firmament that holds the sky. So it's sort of a universal belief. And you ask, like, did they come up with this themselves? No. I think this moved out. Paganism, to me, starts in the Middle East about 13 to 12,000 years ago. Starts to go over to Africa, starts to go to Europe, goes eventually over to the Americas. But it passed. Like, one culture trades one, another one trades another one trades another one. So eventually ideas spread out. But then, of course, as they spread, they change. When they got to areas, their different needs or things make them also change. But you can see that there is a sort of, general
theme. Yeah, there's a theme.
Yeah.
There's
exactly.
there's a narcissism behind this. They all focus on themselves.
They do, don't they?
Yeah, it's them. And and there's a bubble around them, but they forget about everybody else, right?
That is true. I actually didn't think about that, but that's a good point. Yeah. So it's good of you to bring that up. So going back to the blog, so a single explanatory text equates Namu with Abzu. So it's not like all of Sumerian thought that those two things were the same. One text, but it is stated they are related together. Nabzu can refer to as the creator.
Can I mention something before we move on? It just dawned on me in my mind. We were just looking at those pictures. The focus of those pictures of being them centralized like that can also push the philosophy and the idea of all the little tribe to be enslaved to go into those bigger cities in a way. Not enslaved, but to incorporate that philosophy. Yeah. So you're on the edge of the map. It's better to be in the center of the map. When you think about it, that would work psychologically if you were to teach that. I don't know. I'm just thinking of that out loud in my head, going, that would make sense if you're trying to get a bunch of people to move a bunch of stones to build something. If they built it,
I agree. That's not a ridiculous thinking. I agree. Yes, that would.
I'm sorry to disturb you. Go ahead.
No, they didn't disturb me. That's fine. So Namu could be referred to as the creator Enkur, and which is synonymous with Abzu. But the text and how it's used is not identical to the name of the goddess, which confirms that she and the mythical Abzu, or water deep, fresh water from the underground body of water, were not identical. So it's not like I was trying to say, it's not like they're exactly the same. And Namu could be referred to with epithet as a lady who is great and high in the sea, the mother who gave birth to the heaven and earth, or the first mother who gave birth to all gods. While presumed focus on Namu as closely possible with the parallel of Tiamat, the role in Babylonians' creation myth myth recorded in the Imru Elish, the two were not always closely connected, such as how there was no evidence of Namu was ever regarded as antagonistic figure, as seen in Babylonian Tiamat, the cosmic ocean that mates with Abzu, the groundwater. Tiamat and Abzu fill the cosmic abyss with primordial waters. Tiamat also is seen as the mother of all gods and a mother of monsters. And that's like the snake beliefs, because snake beliefs or dragon beliefs and water, or like in the Bible, Leviathan coming out of the water, are related. Okay. And it is believed that all lakes, springs, rivers, fountains, rain, and even the flood, the historical flood, the great flood, were ascribed, originated from Abzu. So that tells you where, because some people, like even the Bible flood, it's not just rain. So people always think that it was like rain just fell down. No, actually it talks about I can't remember if it's the gates of the water of the deep are open or something like that. But that would be like Abzu flooding from the groundwater coming up instead of just, in a sense, rain coming down. So in Mesopotamian cosmology, it's referred to the fresh water primordial ocean, because see, Tiamat sometimes is considered the salt water. Anyways, the fresh water below and above the earth. Indeed, the earth itself is regarded as a goddess, Ninhursag.
Are they talking about inside the earth?
Right.
They're talking about inner earth. Like there's a theory, or not theory, hypothesis saying that there's an earth inside the earth where everything
well, no,
is like
they're not talking about earth inside
down.
there. They're talking about like an aquifer, like water,
okay.
you know, like you dig a well and you hit water, a water table or whatever. That's what they're talking about.
Okay. No, somebody was hypothesizing saying that if you go into the earth, the gravity is flipped upside down and you got a waterfall going forward instead of going downward towards the earth. That's what they were talking about. I don't know if it's true or not, but whatever, you know.
When it was so, and then of course about being male and female, they consider Abzu to be male, and with mating with the female saltwater stream, which was Tiamat. The ancient Egyptians perceived the primordial void as a dark, chaotic, and endless watery abyss, the primordial waters, known as Nun, Nu or Nun. And by the way, Nu is the female expression of this male deity, and Nun is the male expression. So it's actually a dual-gendered being sometimes. So Nun was a personification of dark, watery abyss that existed at the beginning of time, which contained the potential for all life. So that once again, when we think of the chaotic, you understand to them the night sky, though chaotic, was also the potential for life, just like it gives birth to the moon. So Nun was the inert one, or like I said, the male expression, and Nu was the watery one, or the female expression in ancient Egypt religion. Personification of together, though, were the personification of the primordial water abyss, which existed at the time of creation and from which the creator sun god Ra arose. So he arose out of the waters. In other words, you could say that it gave birth to Ra out of the water. So Nu and Nun are shown usually as a male, but also had aspects that could be considered as female or male, which the name Nu is a female gender ending, and Nun was written with a male gender ending. Nun was one of the 8 Ogdog, representing ancient primordial chaos from which the primordial mound arose. The primordial mound is a mound of earth, like the one I showed on top of the turtle, the mound of earth, which is related to Earth Diver. This is the mound that comes up, but it's not animals that build it. It's almost like the water, which is, male and female, came together and gave birth to the earth, or the mound, which is a pyramid, which is the mound of creation that relates to why they build pyramids. And Nun can be seen as the first of all the gods, the creator of reality and the personification of the cosmos. Nun is also considered the god that will destroy existence, return everything to where Nun came from, which was basically blackness and nothingness and water. No cult was addressed to Nun for Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians envisioned the oceanic abyss of Nun surrounding a bubble in which is the bubble would be, of course, the firmament, in which the sphere of life is encapsulated, representing the deepest mystery of their cosmos or cosmology. In ancient Egyptian creation accounts, the original mound of land comes forth from the waters of Nun. The Nun is the source of that appears differentiated world from which emerge all aspects of the divine and earthly existence. So, and also none is perceived as transcendent point of the creation alongside Autumn, which is the sun, the creator god. Because it really depends on which part of Egypt you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Because every place is like just like Mesopotamia. Every city state had their own belief.
Right.
It's just like Christianity today. You can't get two Christians in a room today and agree on the whole Bible being correct. They're going to pick and choose what they believe in within that Bible. So I've read some Christians believe in reincarnation, and I've read that, and I've heard some Christians say they don't believe in reincarnation. I've heard from specifically some Christians that said the earth wasn't created in 6,000 years and that it was longer. And then I've read and heard that some of them said that it was. So everybody has their own belief. It's just that they come together in one enclosed building and worship the same God.
Right. And so they're all there, and that's the same with Egypt. Even though they have all these different things, the similar thing of the water and the mound of creation is found in all of them. So that and the flat earth, all of them. How they envision that is a little different. Where the sun goes sometimes under the water, or it gets eaten by the sky and then is given birth to in the morning. Some of that stuff is different, but it's mostly the same. Anyways, in the beginning of the universe for Egyptian only consisted of the great chaotic cosmic ocean, which of course, like I said, was also dark, had no light. The ocean itself was referred to as none. In some version of the myths, the beginning of time is a cow deity, one of the original ones, called Memhet, which was also, that name meant the great flood, or like I was saying, like celestial waters. And then there was also the celestial cow, or cow goddess, which also was associated with other cow goddesses or goddesses of the water, with Neth, Bet, Hathor, and Isis, who all have similar characteristics, because that's also depends on what time, because Bat is older than Hathor. Hathor is more younger. So it's different times. And then, because eventually Hathor also takes away Memhet also, Bet Memeth disappear and it's just Hathor. It's evolving, but it's a similar idea. It doesn't change. Anyways, the characteristics are similar. Like them, she could be called the Eye of Ra, which I think is interesting too, because the Eye of Ra, if you put it in this way, the Eye of Ra is the sun, the Eye of Horus is the moon, but Horus used to be that one eye was the sun, one eye was the moon, and it wasn't about Ra. It was only about Horus. Then later, Ra's eye, which also is female, which is interesting. Anyways, but we're portrayed as a cow or a sun disk between her horns and gave birth to the sun, said to have risen from the waters of creation, the cow did, or the sun did, or both, and have given birth to the sun, god Ra, in some myths. The universe was encompassed in a sense by a vast primordial waters, and the Ben, which is the pyramid stone and also the mound of creation, a pyramid mound, emerged amidst the primordial chaos or the waters. Like I said, Ben is why they made pyramids, and the top of pyramids were also the Ben stone and also obelisks. So there was and then one myth, there was a lotus flower with the Ben, or maybe on top of it, kind of like how the tree was on top of the mound, which was on top of the turtle, which was floating in the water, to help you understand. Because sometimes the Ben is not like fixed to anything. It's like the flat earth floating in the water. When it blossomed, when the lotus blossomed, emerged Ra, which would be the sun. There were many versions of the sun's emergence. So it's not just one, like we were saying before. And it is said to have emerged directly from the mound, or the lotus, from the lotus that grew from the mound of creation, which is the Ben, in the form of a bird, falcon, scarab, beetle, or even a human child. So you can see right there's several different things. They're not the same, depending on the city or even the myth in a city. So Heteropolis, the creation was attributed to Autumn, not Ra, a deity closely associated with Ra, who was said to have existed in the waters of none and was an inherent and inert potential being. So in other words, they're saying is in that belief that the waters, like I was saying about at the beginning, where the creation from nothing, sometimes sometimes has not the waters itself or the ocean, but like a mist, which is like the potential for water. And so that's what they're kind of saying here. The sun was inside of the water itself as a potential being that hadn't yet become a being. So the different Egyptian myths from the major cities of Egypt, Acropolis, by the way, none of these are their original names, just so you know, or not general. These are like Greek names given to cities that were Egyptian. Because some people like to say these names, even some like Isis and some of these other names, these are not like the original names of deities that would have been from, just like Egypt itself wasn't called Egypt, like it's called Kemet. Anyways, just so people know that, yeah. I know that also makes it even more complicated when you're understanding these ancient things, because we're not even getting like the original names, the original places. So, which I feel does injustice to understanding like what the original stuff was, because we don't even have original understanding. And it's said so often that these are the real thing that we forget they weren't really the real names. Anyway, I digress. So they all held that the world had risen out of the lifeless water of chaos called Nun. And see, and there they're using the female version, which often if you see, and I even have a picture of it that shows this happening, it's shown as a female water and a male land. So, and the reason, like I was saying, is because even though it's a male deity, it had a dual nature that could be either male or female depending on what it is. So here, I'll show you. Right, so, and it's hard to see that picture, but the picture has a breast. So that's the female personification, the watery one, because the inert one is the male version in a sense, or personification. And then the female, the watery one, which is where the mound comes out of, not from the inert.
It's the flat tit, the one right there, the one.
Yeah, the blue thing.
It's not bulbous looking, rounded, but
it kind of sticks. It's hard to see on this version.
It's kind of straight down, unless the arm is right out, so it kind of goes straight down. So it's kind of anatomically correct, right?
Well, yeah, it's from the side, anatomically correct. So I'm going to go to Nut Mythology so you can see a better version of it specifically, because I really think it helps to understand what we're talking about, because we don't think like this. So this you see the figure has a little pointed breast. I know it may be hard to see.
There we go.
Yeah, I see it.
You see it where it's blue, it's got a little pointed breast. And if you look here, that right here, another version, it's got a little small nipple and little breast.
Yeah,
I never noticed that before.
Yeah,
it's protruding a little bit.
Right, protruding, but it's not distinct because it has the beard, right? So it's like saying, but that's because it's not considered to be only one gender, which of course
So is it a beard, or is it a beard with a string attached?
No, it's a beard, bro.
It's a beard, but later I agree with you. So, but this goes back to, like I already talked about, in Africa in general, deities could be, especially the omnipotent, could be either genderless, or could be a male or female, or could be dual gender. The dual genderedness was not a abstract thinking. And so you could also change gender, like this one, kind of mainly male, but sometimes is also female, but still male. So it could be like, in a sense, drag queen or something, but doing drag to them would have been that you have now switched genders, in a sense. Anyways, but this just helps you understand that how
none is trans.
Right, be trans, right. Yeah. I'm just saying that for us, I'm trying to understand, go back
to the trans community. None. All right.
I think that people should have rights to be who they are. So in Egypt, that would have been not a big deal. No, ancient Egypt, of course, I should say. Not Egypt now. And now you probably get thrown from a building. But so let's go to the picture again. Right. So I'm just trying to say, because the bin, which would have been Geb, which this doesn't say, but would have been Geb. I'll show another picture where it shows that mound is Geb. So
I always loved this picture right here. So this is the nice guy.
Right. And they're showing the air, which is like in the Sumerian, which is Enlil, or the spirit of the Lord that separates the sky from water from the land. But so it's showing that that the sky is nut. Well, that's in this version because the water of the sky would have been nu in the other, in a sense, version, which would have been a female version or trans or whatever, or drag queen of the male deed that was the sky primordial water. That's a similar thing, just different names. Anyways, and you see it says the night sky, which is what I talked about, that the water of the sky was considered darkness and night. And then Geb is the earth, which was the mound of creation in a sense. So just so people can understand that there, because see, the male and female, like sky father and earth mother, is a common belief all over the world. It's not like limited to one or two cultures. It's literally the divine couple, which we've talked about before, is from Africa all the way to the Americas, China, Indonesia. I mean, it's literally all over the place. And so, but the one difference is it's kind of unique, is that when it comes to Africa, they have in a sense a version right here which is opposite of almost most of the world. Most of the world, the earth is female, where Africa, or not rest of Africa, actually the earth is also female. It's pretty much Egypt, which is like this lone holdout. I put a picture that kind of shows you. So I've listed the sky father and the earth mother, or the earth mother, or sky father and the sky mother, depending the way that. And then I put all these colors are language families, so that they kind of are speaking the same sort of related language, which you can see it covers vast areas. And then I put what kind of deities, as far as the divine couple, which is generally the sky father and the earth mother, which ones they believe all over the earth. And Egypt is one of the almost only ones that has an earth father. But as you understand too, that even the sky was in a sense trans or sometimes male. So Egypt has kind of like it's doing its own thing compared to everybody else, even though they're all sort of doing this similar thing. Egypt is really outside the box because nobody's copying directly what they're doing. Because other places there is a sky father and a sky mother, which I've said before with videos we've done, that I think those are the original, was the sky, the night sky, the sky in general. That was the original deities, and then later deities of the earth. Just like how in the cosmology, which we're talking about, the pre-creation and creation, the first things that are created is the sky is already there, and then earth is a secondary later, so including even the Bible. I don't see them. Some people think that the earth and all that, deities came first. Nah, I don't think so. That would be totally outside of what we're talking about, like how pre-creation wasn't earth was already there. It was nothingness, blackness, night sky, water, and then the land is birthed out of that. But there already was deities that pre-exist land. Anyways, so they mean different things. So going to this, they also include the pyramid-shaped mound, which, by the way, it wasn't always a pyramid-shaped mound. So the Bimbin, when it started, was not pyramid-shaped. It was actually more like I showed in that first picture, that it was a mound. And then later it became, sometime before they built the pyramids, it became pyramid-shaped. And I have a feeling, to me, that was an idea that, in a sense, I feel probably relates to the Egyptians themselves doing that. Although there's other places in the world that have what's called the four corners of the world, and the four corners of the world would mean the world is probably square.
Yeah.
So we adopted the Egyptian mythology in America and Washington, D.C.
Some.
How do you feel about that?
Some of it. We adopted a lot of from everywhere, actually, not just not Egypt.
That's true. Even Native American, even our supposed democracy, people think only came from Greek, actually came from, the people of the, I want to say Iroquois Confederacy. I think so. Anyways, but Native American ideas of democracy were a big deal. So yes, it is not inaccurate that we also did Greek and some Roman, but America definitely is a melting pot of ideas, even if they don't want to be a melting pot, of people, which they are. and the thing of calling it American culture as if it's somehow some unique thing, when really it's a whole bunch of other people's culture, which is weird because every time there's a new culture, which is what the history of America has always done is blend it together. It always hates that, new person or new thing. To me, that's why I find it ridiculous when people feel like America has had 250 years of freedom. I'm like, that's a literal lie. Literally does not. Literally had years and years of slavery, and then had, all kinds of bigotry continuously. That's like Trumpism and MAGA is not some new feature. There was if you ever watched the movie The Gangs in New York, that basically
that's a good movie.
It is a good movie. The people that kill the dead rabbits, the one guy that has the meat cleavers, he was part of the Know Nothings, which is, you can go look it up. The group called the Know Nothings, which were like the MAGA. They were total nationalists, and they hated everybody that wasn't like them and wasn't a European Christian and Protestant, and anyone who wasn't, because one of the things that people don't talk about like in the movie is the dead rabbits were like Catholics. So it was like Protestants fighting the Catholics. And it had to do with they wanted American
Symbology.
culture. Yeah, but they wanted American culture to be only Protestant. Only. So I mean, religious freedom has also never been a thing in America. There's been tons of hate. So even inside of Christianity. I mean, if it was only Christians, it still would have been mass war because of Christians, Protestants and Catholics. Because a lot of times people think Protestants and Catholics fighting, they really think of like, Ireland or something. But America, that's literally what that movie The Gangs in New York deeply relates to. But anyway, going on back to the other stuff, I'm just saying, yeah. So when we go down to before the ancient Egypt built the pyramids, which is a house to their god kings for eternity, they built an enduring legacy of tombs structure called mastabas. Mastaba was the precursor of the pyramids, which they in a sense started stacking up, and it made the first step pyramid, which then was similar to the Benben stone. And before, so the mastabas before were just flat, so themselves weren't in the shape of the Benben stone, but inside the mastaba where the burial was, they would put a little mound of creation, a little Benben inside of the burial chamber in a sense. And even some would put like the primordial swamp, which related to, though in a sense like we're talking about, the primordial ocean or waters of creation. They're recreating, because it's just like the pyramids later, it's almost like the graves, things they're building with pyramids or the mastabas are like a reincarnation machine or whatever for their god king. Anyways, and they start before 3100 BCE or 5,100 years ago, which was the first pharaoh. But they actually probably go back to maybe 33 or 34 or maybe older themselves, these mastabas, which when people think of the pyramids, they forget to think about the mastabas. And I'll actually show you a picture of that too, because I think it helps to understand what these structures are, because Mesopotamia had them first. They had, well, not exactly a mastaba, but something, platform mound thing that was similar.
So I was just reading. So it's funny you say that, because I was reading it. My next, what I've learned from reading this book is going to be on the Ubadians. And the Ubadians are the people that came before the Sumerians. And before the Ubadians, it was the Halaf people, Halaf. And then before them, it was the Hasuna, Samara, I believe that's how you call them. They came before that, and they had mounds. They said, and I'm telling you, this time frame goes back at least 10,000 years at bare minimum. This whole, and the culture, these cultures are found because of their pottery. They see that the pottery had changed over a certain amount of period, and that's when they said, okay, it was a new civilization. That's why a lot of people say the Sumerians are considered the first civilization, because of their writing system, but also because of their pottery. Because of their writing system, they had to use kilns, I think that's what they're called, to burn the bricks or the clay and stuff like that. But they were doing that before the Sumerians. Like, this is something that is interesting, because they just found these cultures just recently, not like probably like in the last 10, 15, 20 years. But
well, and like I've told you before, my belief is that actually all of this relates to what I'm talking about. It's a religious idea, which like the earth diver myth, right? The mythologists think the earth diver myth is about 30,000 years old. So the earth diver myth, the animals build a mound of creation in a sense, or the first land, which is a mound or a hill or a mountain that everybody then ends up living on. And then the mound spreads out and becomes all land in a sense. Or maybe sometimes it stays a mountain at the center of the world, and then the land around it sort of expands, and then we all live on that as a flat earth. But so yes, and I do agree. So the first or oldest evidence for shell mounds is about 11 to 12,000 years ago. And then yes, there are some kind of mounds in the Middle East, I think it's Syria or something, or northern Mesopotamia, that are maybe even up to 11,000 years old that relate probably to this kind of like a mound sort of thing. But once again, a reason I think they're doing this mound stuff, including the Americas, I feel all over, is this pre-existing belief in a sense from the Siberian belief of the earth diver, which the earth diver is just a version, I think, of the night sky creation mythology that came out of Africa. So everything like is related. In other words, like I've said before, I feel like religion is sort of like Legos stacking on top of each other. They think, like you said about everyone's viewing themselves in the world as they're the center of the universe. Well, I agree. And I think that all of these different things are still related. So they all have animism. Everybody, all religions, no matter what their religion, 100%, everybody has.
Right. Explain animism, because some people might not even know what that means.
So animism, well, it's going back to words real quick. So a lot of these words were invented with people that thought everything non-Christian was some unique, different thing. So I don't see these words like that. And so there is still people that think like primitive hunter-gatherers are all animistic. Where I'm telling you, Christians are animistic. Everybody is animistic. And animistic to me, an easy way to understand it is it's about spirit beliefs, the belief in spirits. So if you believe in angels and stuff, you believe in spirits. If you believe in a God, you believe in a high spirit, or like in Native Americans, they call it great spirit. And even the Bible talks about the spirit of the Lord. Like even in, like I said, Genesis, the spirit of the Lord floats over the water of the deep. That's an animistic belief. A lot of people try to limit animistic beliefs and say it just means that you think that rocks and trees have spirits. But the Bible says if the people do not preach to God, the rocks and the trees will cry out to God, meaning they must have a spirit to do so, in a sense, the thinking. So I don't classify that as any different. It is a spiritism in a sense belief, because sometimes they define the word, they try to limit it to non-Christian, which to me that Muslims, everybody has, the Hindus, it is a core thing everything else is built on. So then totemism. So animism is a belief that everything's spirits or can have spirits. So if you believe that you have a soul, that is a spirit. So if you believe in an afterlife, if you had to have a soul to do that, then you had animism. But afterlife is shamanism. But hold on a second. So animism, right? Totemism is about how you're supposed to live in the world. It's how you're supposed to, who you have sex with. If you have taboos about what you can eat or not eat, and the Bible does, like you can't eat shellfish or whatever, solid hoof animals, I think maybe those are taboos which relate to totemism. Totemism also has to do with like how a society limits who you have sex with. In other words, like a society that says that the male line is the most important, that's a totemistic thinking, or the female line. If you say there's no line, like the Haza, where they see people coming from both male and female, they don't have a male, heir or a female heir. Everybody is related. That's not totemistic. Totemistic is when you say, oh no, only these are. Like you got to take the man's name in marriage. That's a totemistic concept. It's how you're supposed to behave. So it's a religious persuasion about naturalistic things. So totemism does not inherently mean afterlives or spirits or whatever. It's more like how you socially are supposed to behave. That's super important to totemism. Shamanism does not care about that. Where totemism, it's about men and women and you have to basically procreate. Shamanism, you can be transgender, you can be gay, you can be, they don't care. In fact, almost if you're that, you're better because you're different. So shamanism but that's because it doesn't care about your behavior. It's all about the afterlife, all about talking to spirits, all about transcending natural life to some higher consciousness, higher plane, going and communicating with with spirits or beings or even ancestors, something after life, not the here and now per se. That's its focus. Paganism is when you take all the above and you add gods as a focus. So you still have the belief in spirits, you still have clans and who you have sex with and rules about what you can eat and not eat. And you had shamanism, so now you believe in afterlives and you believe in ancestors and whatever generally. And then paganism goes, yeah, but now we have gods, because that's a different focus. And then like Christianity or Islam or some of the or organized religion, where they've taken and they've tried to limit some of the expression of some of this and make it more, it's almost like I was saying about the 5 tribes that are civilized, where they're still Native Americans, but now they're European dress. They all kind of dress the same. They all speak and write, in English or whatever. And so it's like, to me, organized religion is basically the domestication of religion. It's when before, and this also helps understand paganism, there can be all kinds of things. Look at even how that one story we just read, where it said that the god could be shown as a bird, like a heron, a falcon, a scarab beetle, or a child. So that's paganism idea, that there's not some organized, fixed, have to, must do, only this way. No, it doesn't have that. Organized religion domesticates and says only this book, only this people, only this thing. That is totally an organized religion concept. Now, eventually, even like Egypt starts having, in a sense, the Egyptian state religion. When it's state religion, it's organized. And it says, here's the deity we do. He tries to make the god Amun the only god, right? Because he knows it's an organized state religion and he can do that. He can just say, you know what? We're all going to believe this and that's going to be the new god. That is a complete domestication of the Egyptian religion, trying to say that I can decide that this is the way it's going to be and this is the only way it's going to be. And to me, that's also why those kind of religions are more warlike and hate more against other, in a sense, things, because it has to be only their way, their thing, their stuff, where paganism, shamanism, totemism, animism, these ones. And as the more you go down on that list, like animism could care less. It's almost like spiritual non-religious. You're like, hey, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I think this or that, or aliens, or whatever. And they're like, yeah, cool. Yeah, that's cool. The more you go up the list, the more they start having, in a sense, especially paganism and above, they start having like more caring about what you believe. Because there's all kinds of shamanism, right? There's shamanism that has drugs, doesn't have drugs. There's ones that say you can, the male is a shaman. There's ones that say females can be the shaman. There's a lot more leeway. It's the more and more it gets domesticated and organized that it becomes a different thing. Anyways, that's how I see it, religion. So going back to the stuff. So the earliest mastabas known were 3,300 BCE or 5,300 years ago. So this is important because this is before people think of like when the pyramids happened. So there was already this idea, but actually that's even older than that, as we already talked about. But even like just related to the mastaba, it's also old. So this was for signaling elite status and wealth. And surrounding that one grave was 53 graves of 58 individuals, meaning some people had more than one individual in the grave. And pre-dynastic and proto-dynastic cemetery was only a little bit younger, and that was at 32 to 3000 BCE. The origin of Egyptian mastabas, though, architectural and funeral discoveries, has been shown to be actually 37,000 BCE or 5,700 years ago. And it was part of the culture that actually went back to 6,000. So anyways, we're gonna skip that stuff. So what those things also relate to, like the Ben was a primeval mound, which I already talked about, and it emerged from the chaotic watery abyss, none, at the dawn of creation, which is called Zep Tepi, which is the first time, or like the beginning of time. The Ben, or Mount of Creation, was the very place of stable, solid land, or fixed reality. So, because before that, it's chaos. It's unfixed. The ultimate point of reference for the universe, which that relates to like what's called an axis mundi, which is something someone created that term, but I think it's helpful to understand. In this way, it could be seen as acting as axis mundi. It is the absolute cosmic center where the creator Amun landed to bring light, order, and life to the universe. universe. In comparative mythology, axis mundi is also called the cosmic axis, which can also be a world tree or a world pillar or a cosmic mountain. World center. And the world tree is also like in the Nordic, and in the Americas, they have a tree that does it. It goes supposedly straight through the planet or whatever and up into space. It also relates to the three worlds, the upper world, the middle world where the land is, and then the lower, just like in the Nordic, they have the word hail or hell, which relates to the roots of the tree where the underworld is, So axis mundi is closely related to the mythological concepts of, in a sense, the navel of the world or the navel of the cosmos, which you already said, like everybody makes their little map. They're the center of the world. And
every single one of them do that. Every single one of them do that.
Right. Yeah. I wonder how that could cause any issues. Yeah. So anyways, the axis mundi in comparative mythology includes the tree, but also other plants like a vine or a stalk, or a mountain or a hill or a mound or a column of smoke or a column of fire or a product of human manufacture such as a tower or like a pyramid or a staircase, a maypole, a cross, a steeple, a rope, a totem pole, a pillar, or a spire. Just so you can grasp that all these things are sort of related in a mythological kind of understanding. The idea of center of the cosmos, role of elevating status of whatever place chosen the cosmic center, reflecting the beliefs of a finite closed nature of the cosmos. Babylon, was described as the center of the Babylonian cosmos. Now, as you said, actually all of them do it to the center of their own cosmos. In parallel, Jerusalem became the navel of the earth in Ezekiel 38:12. So it's all these things are we've already seen the little pictures too, are doing the same thing. Infinite nature of the cosmos also suggested by the ancients of periodic regular movements of the heavenly bodies in visible vicinity to the earth. Specific examples of cosmic mountains or centers include one from Egypt text describing as a pivoting support for the sky. In other words, the thing that helps the firmament stay there. But also Mount Mishu in the Epic of Gilgamesh, or in a sense, Adam's Peak, which is a sacred mountain in Sri Lanka associated with Adam or Buddha in Islam and Buddhist traditions, respectively. Mount Oaf in the Islamic and Arabic cosmologies, the mountain. Anyways, there's one in Zoroastrianism and Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism. Mecca also can be considered that. So there's all kinds of different traditions that really have this. And so it's important. This is like, in a sense, literary evidence of this cosmic mountain belief or thinking. And Mishu, the Epic of Gilgamesh, was thought to be located or extended to both the westernmost and the easternmost parts of the earth, and where the sun could rise and set respectively, such as what's called the bipolar model of solar movements. The gates of the rising setting sun were also located at Mishu, at the mountain. Some accounts have Mishu as a tree growing in the center of the earth. See how though that the reason it changes from a tree to a pole or a mountain or whatever, it really relates to the people's probably environment. I mean, the mountains are a pretty stupid concept if you live in a completely flat land. Same with calling something a tree, you'd have to put your own pole. So anyways, but they're all the point I always try to show is I'm showing that the religious thinking though is similar. Yeah. Right. The cosmic mountain is also found in Egyptian cosmology, the pyramid text 1040c that says the mountain range on the eastern and western side of the Nile act as the two to support the sky, which is the firmament. In the Baal cycle, which is the Canaanites, two cosmic mountains exist on the horizon, the point of which the sun rises and sets into the underworld Mot. The tradition of twin cosmic mountains is also in the Bible with Zechariah 6:1. Cosmic mountain is an important metaphor in the Old Testament. People of the Near East thought the mountains as the home of the gods. In fact, the ziggurat, which is the similar thing to the pyramid that the Sumerians and Mesopotamian people built, was often called the mountain of God, or the place that God resides when he's on earth, because it's like a mountain. And so Bible writers shared this similar worldview. Across the ancient world, priests and poets tell of a cosmic mountain, place from which creation creation was born. So and like the Egyptians, the mound of creation, or like the Native Americans and the Siberians with the earth diver. It's all the same stuff. In the Bible, Mount Zion is abode of God and for Israel, but the mountain also sits at the center of modern day Jerusalem. People live and work across Mount Zion. You can pick up a nice scarf or some great falafel there. Such a paradox, a cosmic mountain. It is at once a sacred and mundane, terrestrial and the divine. The cosmic mountain is a place where heavens and earth overlap. Or like I was saying with Sumerians, it used to be that before the firmament, the sky laid on the earth, or actually were one being, like yin and yang of male and female. The narrative journey of the Bible is blazing with cosmic mountains. From Mount Mora, Mount Sinai, Mount Tabor, Mount of Olive, sacred mountains, scripture all over the Bible story. In the Near East, earth was a flat earth, or a single continent disk residing over a body of water. Like I said, it says sometimes compared to a raft. The aerial view of the cosmology of the earth was potentially alluded also in the Babylonian map of the world, where in a sense the city of Babylon is near the earth's center, which like you said, actually they all kind of put themselves in the center. And it sits on the Euphrates River. Other kingdoms and cities surround it. The north covers enormous mountain range akin to a wall. This mountain range was traversed by some heroes and myths, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, where Gilgamesh travels past it to the areas only accessible by gods and great heroes. The furthest and most remote parts of the earth were believed to be inhabited by fantastic creatures. The Babylonian map, the world continent, is surrounded by a bitter water or salt water ocean, which would be Tiamat, ocean called Maratu or salt sea, akin to, and since the Greeks, Oceanus, described in poetry of Homer, and Hesiod, early Greek cosmology, as well as the statement in the bilingual creation of the world by Marduk, who created the first land surrounded by a cosmic sea. Egyptian cosmology appears to have also shared this view, as one of the words used for sea means great encircler. World encircling oceans are also found in the Farah tablet VAT 12772 from the 3rd millennium, which is 5,000 years ago, in the myth of Etana. Etana was the 13th king of the first dynasty of Kish and recorded in the Sumerians' kings list. So it's just showing that it's in different cultures, not just one. 4 different Egyptian models of the firmament or heavenly realm are known. One model, the flat earth or a slightly convex one, was celestial plane, which, depending on the text, was thought to be surrounded in various ways by pillars, by scepters, or by mountains at the extreme ends of the earth. 4 supports given rise to the motif of the 4 corners of the world, and which I have a blog about the 4 corners. And it also relates like to, in a circular sense, because some people think it only means a square, where it can, and certainly like in China, they consider a square earth and a round heaven, because the earth is floating on the water and then the bubble is round. Anyway, the firmament. But it also can be like the Native Americans, how a circle can be cut into 4 quadrants like the medicine and then mean the 4 directions. So it doesn't have to inherently just be limited to a square shape, just so people understand that it's a general concept. The common title among the powerful king was describe themselves as the ruler of the area of the king of the 4 corners. For example, Hammurabi in 1810 to 1750 BCE, which you just add 2000 to that, actually 2026, but to that, and that tells you the time. So it's like 3,000 something. Received title as the king of Sumer and Akkad, the king of the 4 corners of the world. Monarchs from the Syrian Empire also took this title, although the title implies a square or rectangle shape. In this case, it was taken to refer to the 4 quadrants of a circle, like I already talked about, which were joined in the center. Likewise, which of course then would be the center center being like the mound of creation in the center, or the cosmic mountain, or the pole, or the totem pole, or the whatever. Likewise, the four corners motif also appears in some biblical texts, such as Isaiah 11:12, or in Greco-Roman and Jewish literature, the phase, the ends of the earth, referring to the outermost points of the earth, such as it terminated in Oceanus, or the outer ocean circling around the earth disk. Cosmic ocean, cosmic sea, primordial waters, or celestial river. All these are considered similar mythological motifs that represent a world or cosmos enveloped by a vast primordial ocean, which we already know now is actually how the belief was that the universe starts. Darkness, primordial ocean, and then everything else after that. Found in many cultures and civilizations. The cosmic ocean exists before the creation of the earth. The cosmic ocean can also represent or embody chaos that some myths perceive as predetermined. The primacy of water in some creation myths corresponds to the cosmological model or explanatory model of the universe, or earth, or whatever, of land surrounded by a world ocean. The sky is often thought of as something like the upper sea, which we've already talked about too, like stars and everything floating, above us. The emergence of the earth with its air and visible eruptions from fire, or pre-existing chaos, or even the freshwater ocean like the Mesopotamian Abzu, is usually presented as an element factor of a first cosmetic order. So in other words, when there was chaos, there was an Abzu. Once there is a first ordering of chaos, Abzu then comes out of that water, which, like I said, with Tiamat relating to Abzu, Abzu's the fresh water, Tiamat's the salt water. If you can't drink salt water, that's water that's chaos, because it's unusable in a sense for us to nourish ourselves. Where Abzu, we can drink it keeps us alive. So that would be seen as, in a sense, that's the ordering of chaos, because now it actually produces life. That water is usable to understand it. And like you said, Abzu is where the Anunnaki come from. So that would tell you right there, first off, the Anunnaki cannot be the original thing at the beginning of creation, because Abzu wasn't there at the beginning of creation. Abzu was created after, maybe even before the earth, but certainly sometime around then, and then later then that it's created, and then out of that later the Anunnaki. Anyways, so the cosmic ocean takes different forms, but it is in the mythology of Yadaism, Hal el Heg, Alivism, ancient Egyptian mythology, ancient Greek mythology, Canaan mythology, ancient Hindu mythology, ancient Iranian mythology, Sumerian mythology, Zoroastrian mythology, which is Iran, ancient Roman mythology, and also, ancient biblical mythology. The ancient creation texts of primordial waters often represented as having filled the entire universe and are the first source of the gods, or I would say where the gods came out of. Or like the thing in Egypt said about autumn, that it was like an element in the water that was inert, like not happening, but had the potential to be a god in the water, and then the water gives birth to it and fulfills its potential. The act of creation is the establishment of inevitable space separated from the enveloping waters. The cosmic ocean is the shape of the universe before creation, or like I called in my title, pre-universe. The ocean is boundless, in a sense, unordered, unorganized, in a sense, formless, dangerous, but with the potential for life, so also, but terrible. In some myths, the catastrophe is noted opposed to the ordering rhythm of the sea. Chaos can be personified as water, or by unorganized interaction of water and fire. The transformation of chaos into order is a transformation from water to land, because we can't live on water, but we live on land. So that's why it's considered order. Just like salt water would be, in a sense, disorder or chaos, where, in a sense, fresh water, Abzu, would be considered order. In many ancient cosmological myths, the ocean and chaos are the equivalent and irreplaceable from each other. The ocean remains outside of space space, or I would say space itself, even after the emergence of land. At the same time, the ability for the ocean to generate is realized in its appearance of the earth. So the elements of the earth are generated from this ocean water, or like the gods, they have the potential is in the water. So it's not just chaos and destruction, it has a potential for life. The presence of mythological creatures in that ocean promotes the generation, or contrary, zealously defends the old order, preventing the beginning and chain of new births from the ocean. The primary idea of the ocean element, from the bowels of which the earth arises or is created, is almost universally prevalent. The representation and present in many mythologies of the world. In Asia, North America, the earth diver myth is found. In this myth, the creator deity dives into, which also is animals, so I don't know why it says the creator deity, but animals dive into the cosmic ocean to bring up land to form the earth. A diving bird catches a lump of earth from the primordial ocean, often appears in mythologies of Native Americans and Siberian peoples. In Polynesian mythology, Maui fishes up islands. In Scandinavian mythology, the gods raise the earth. Like I said, also in the Slavic, the devil helps the god, the good god, and the bad god. The bad god brings up the land for the good god. So if different. Anyways, Thor catches Jungur. I don't know how to pronounce that. But anyways, that's like the Leviathan. That's like the Tiamat sea monster or whatever from the bottom of the ocean, or Leviathan in the Bible. In the ancient Egyptian mythology, the earth itself comes to the surface in the form of a mount, like I said, the Mount of Creation or the Bin stone. In Hindu, when the deity, it's hidden earth in the cosmic ocean. Lord Vishnu took a boar used as an avatar to save it. Earth and sky are almost universally represented as feminine and masculine. A married couple standing at the beginning, in a sense, of this process. At the same time, the feminine and masculine principles are associated with elements of water and chaos, and usually are conceived as a side of nature rather than of culture. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the earth itself comes to the surface in the form of a mount. The cosmology of ancient Near East, cross-cultural group of cosmologies, or what's considered the cradle of cosmology, meaning that the ancient Near East gave all kinds of people who then spread out this general mythology, like the flat earth and all this stuff. Refers to beliefs to where the universe came from, how it developed, and its physical layout, like the flat earth and the firmament. In the Near East, an area corresponds with the Middle East today, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Persia, which is Iran, and Mesopotamia, which is like Iraq, the Levant, which is like Israel and Syria and Lebanon and Jordan, and Anatolia, which is Turkey, and the Arabian Peninsula. The basic understanding of the world in this region, it prominently times included a flat earth, a solid layer or barrier above the sky, a firmament, an cosmic ocean located above the firmament, and a region above the cosmic ocean where the gods live, and a netherworld located in the furthest region in the direct direction down. Creation myths explained where the universe came from, including which gods created it and how, as well as humanity, how humanity was created. These beliefs are attested as early as the 4th millennium, or 6,000 years ago, and dominated until the modern era. What I would say is still doing, they're just different religions now. It's still the same thing. And with the competent supreme being also being in the Greek or Hellenistic cosmology of ancient Greek, as early as the middle 1st millennium, or around 2,500 years ago. Geographically, these views are known from the Mesopotamian cosmologies of Babylonian, Sumer, and Akkad, Levantine, West Semitic cosmologies from Ugric, and ancient Israel and Judah, the biblical cosmology, the Egyptian cosmology from ancient Egypt, Antonolic cosmology from the Hittites. This system of cosmology went on to profoundly influence the views of early Greeks, Jewish cosmology, Islamic cosmology, and then the Quran cosmology. The cosmology of the ancient Near East can be divided into cosmology of physical structure and features of the cosmos, and also the creation myths describing the origin of the cosmos. Creation myth, or a cosmogonic myth. So this cosmogonic word just means like the cosmology, which is the like a creation myth, or like how things happen, or the structure of what's happened. So a cosmogonic myth is good to understand when you talk about floods. So there's people say like there's floods all over the world. Okay, there are floods all over the world, but they're not all cosmogonic myths. To make it a cosmogonic myth, it has to be like a creation myth, meaning like the Bible, where the water covers everything and kills everything, and everything gets started again. Like a second creation, or a second, reincarnation in a sense. If it's like that, then it's a cosmogonic myth. If it's a flood that doesn't do that, if everything doesn't get destroyed, it's not a cosmogonic. So it says right here how the world began and how people inhabit it. Creation myths, like I said, which are also cosmogonic myths, often share several features. They often are considered sacred accounts that can be found in nearly all religious traditions. Creation myths develop from oral traditions and therefore typically have multiple versions found throughout human culture. They are the most common form of myth. Mythologists have applied various schemes to classify creation myths found throughout human cultures. Some of the myths common reappear in stories over the world over. Yeah, because there's a connection. So they classify as 5 basic myths, but it's actually a little more complicated than that, because they classify the one as from ex nihilo, which is from nothing, which I just see as part of the creation from chaos, which it would be a better category, because there's 2 kinds, which I already talked about at the beginning, which is the creation from nothing and creation from something, which are actually really related. So the creation from nothing, in which the creation is through thought, word, deemed, or bodily secretion of a divine being. Of course, to me, if it's a bodily secretion, it's from something and not just nothing. Anyways, the central today in Judaism and Christianity and Islam is this creation from nothing, even though they actually have the other one too, of creation from water. But it's also found in the creation of the ancient Egyptians, some of them, and the Rig Veda, which is the Hinduism, and animistic cultures of Africa, Asia, Oceania, and North America. Some do, not all. Creation from chaos, or nothing, literally, but a formless, shapeless expanse, which is also sometimes called void or abyss, contains material for which the created world will be made. Chaos may be described as having a consistency of a vapor, water, dimensionless, or sometimes salty or muddy. These myths associate chaos with evil and oblivion, in contrast to order, which is good. Creation from something. Eternal formless matter, namely a dark and still primordial ocean of chaos. So you see how it's very similar. The creation from something is similar to the referring to ideas that matter has always existed, and the modern cosmos is a reformation of pre-existing primordial matter. It is something articulated in the philosophy that nothing can come from nothing. Ancient Eastern cosmology, or the universe is formed through the creation from something, the eternal formless matter, namely the dark and still primordial ocean of chaos. African traditional religions tend to favor the creation of something over the creation from nothing. Sumerian myth, the cosmic ocean is personified as Namu, who gave birth to heaven and earth and had existed forever. In the Babylonian creation epic, the Enmu Elish, pre-existing chaos made up the fresh water of Abzu and the salt water of Tiamat. And from Tiamat, the god Marduk created heaven and earth. In the Egyptian creation myth, a pre-existing water chaos personified as the god Nun and associated with darkness gave birth to the primordial hill, or in some version, the primordial lotus, or others like a celestial cow. In Greek traditions, the ultimate origin of the universe, depending on the source, sometimes was Oceanus, a river that circles the earth, the night, or water. The idea of creation from something is found in Near Eastern cosmology, early Greek cosmology, and across the broad ancient Greek philosophy. It is also held by few early Christians, although creation from nothing nothing was a dominant concept among such writers. Although ancient Near East cosmology is read as invoking a creation from something, occasionally suggests have been made that the creation from nothing can be found at least in some texts, including the Egyptian Memphis theology and the Hebrew Bible's Genesis creation narrative. Although it's been rejected, these interpretations, viewing them both as consistent with creation from something instead of the direct creation suggesting from nothing, as in the book of Isaiah and the book of Proverbs and the Psalms, indicate a form of creation from nothing. The cosmological things of the book of Amos also presents a view of creation from nothing. Earth diver, creation in which a diver, usually a bird or amphibian, is sent by a creator, plunges to the seabed through a primordial ocean to bring up sand or mud, which develops into terrestrial land. The earth diver is common characteristic in traditional creation myths. In these stories, a supreme being usually sends an animal, most often type of bird, but it can also be a crustacean, insects, fish in some narratives, or a turtle, or a frog, or is also a muskrat and I think an otter, and into the primordial waters to find bits of sand or mud in which to build a habitable land. Sometimes these myths are interpreted as psychologically or cosmologically. In both cases, emphasizing a place on beginnings, in a sense, from the depths. The earth diver is one of humanity's oldest creation motifs. Like I said, it's about 30,000, they think. It spans thousands of years and is found in cultures globally, though it's most prominent in indigenous North America, Siberians, as well as diffused throughout practically all of Eurasia, and is found in the in ancient Indian continent as well. Emergence myths, in which the progenitors pass through a series of world or metamorphosis until reaching the present world. The emergence myths, humanity emerges from another world into this current one they inhabit. The previous worlds is often considered the womb of the earth, or the earth mother, and the process of emergence is linked to the act of giving birth. The role of a midwife is usually played by a female deity, like Spider Woman in several mythologies of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Male character rarely figure into these stories, and scholars often consider them a counterpart to the male-oriented creation myths, like those from creation from nothing variety. Emergence myths can describe the creation of people and or supernatural beings in a stage of ancient metamorphosis from, in a sense, native forms through a series of subterranean worlds to arrive at their current form and place. World parent, dual, which I already talked about, the sky and the earth, as being the divine couple or world parent. World parent is dual being, sky, usually male, and earth, usually female, who were so tightly bound to each other. Like I was saying before, in the concept, before the firmament, the water from the sky, or the sky itself, is crushed against the earth. They're not separated. Then in the Sumerian myth, Enlil blows air and separates it, or the Bible, that God's breath does it, or other, Egypt, the mountains are holding it, or whatever. There are two types of world parent myths, both describing the separation or splitting of the primary entity, which is both male and female, which is also heaven and earth, from the world parent or parents. One form describes a primeval state of a union of two parents, and the creation takes place and then are pulled apart. These myths often depict the creation as a result of a sexual union. It served as a genealogical record to the deities are born from. In the second form, the world parent myths, creation itself springs from the dismembered parts of the body of the primordial being. Often in these stories, limbs, hair, bones, blood, organs of the primordial being are somehow severed or sacrificed to transform into the sky, the earth, animals, plant life, and other worldly creatures. These myths tend to emphasize creative forces as animistic in nature rather than sexual, depict the sacred as an element or internal component of the nature of the world. Separation of heaven and earth is a cross-cultural creation myth event. Separation of the roles of differing, chaotic, undifferentiated cosmos, sometimes is interpreted as a universal cosmic ocean, is into coherent and organized parts. which I already told you before also relates to like circumcision of males and females. The circumcision of males is supposedly cut the foreskin, which is the female aspect believed in Africa of the male. So you cut it off, now you're a full male. And cutting off the clitoris of a female was considered cutting off the penis and thus making a full female. It's relating to this mythology thinking. The mechanisms that cause that differ from one another to different stories is usually either spontaneous process or result of an agency of a deity. In the nearest text, the original mass that separated is a solid in Sumerian literature, but becomes a water in younger Akkadian literature, such as the Emu Elish. Sumerian literature mentions the separation event most frequently than any other, by where it comes from. Heaven and earth, which also is in the beliefs of the Proto-Indo-Europeans, there's three different beings, and one of them is considered to probably have been a dual-gendered being that was the original.
Most of them are dual gender.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, yeah. So I'm just saying it's relating to this thing of at one time heaven and earth were one being, and they were male and female as one being. It's a relating to similar stuff. So then the other one is the creation by spitting or ordering the primordial unity, which was going back to what the primordial unity was, the male and female, like a yin and yang, such as cracking of a cosmic egg, right? Because the egg is the unity, and you crack the male and female apart, or the heaven and earth, you're cracking them apart, bringing order from the chaos. The chaos was them being together, which the yin and the yang sees them together as order, which is opposite of what this is trying to say. That together is the disorder or chaos, and breaking them apart, making them separate beings, which is the order. The cosmic egg, world egg, mundane egg is a motif found in cosmologies in many cultures and civilizations, including Proto-Indo-European mythology, West African Dogon mythology, as well as the mythology of China, India, Japan, Finland, Iran, Greece, and Italy. Typically, there is an egg upon which is hatched, either giving rise to the universe itself or giving rise to a primordial being. Of course, also the egg is sometimes floating on the water, which is the primordial water. Primordial being who in turn creates the universe. The egg sometimes laid on a primordial water of the earth. Typically, the upper half of the egg, the outer shell, becomes the heavens or the firmament, and the lower half or the inner yolk becomes the earth. And an alternative system of thinking of all these myths into 6 recurring narratives is the primordial abyss, the infinite expanse of water or space, or should have put darkness, and then which we already talked about, that's pre-creation, and then the originator deity, which awakens from this eternal entity within the abyss or the water or the darkness, and then the original creator deity above the abyss, and then the cosmic egg or embryo, and the original deity creating life through sound or word. Anyway, so then life generating from a corpse of a dismembered parts of original deity. So there's a whole bunch more, but obviously, we're not going to take 8-hour video, but so people should read more. I put lots more stuff, helps you understand. But I think
how many pages is this?
It looks like it's about at least a 20-30 minute read.
That there was to the end, so there's definitely some more. But
yeah,
then I have, this is another blog I have. You can click.
I'm looking at the scroll on the right. It looks like 150 pages.
It's a lot of pages, but it stops where I was getting to about this blog, stops right there, and then I go to water mythology, explaining more. It's a blog all about that. Then I have the thing here that's it's talking about the different ones and the Babylonian, but also here the mythology of 4 squared, pyramid, mound, square, mountain, center of the world, sacred earth, squared earth. There's a link. That's a blog of mine I wrote and stuff. So then I show here like the Mayans and the Babylonians both have a pyramid, and then the ancient primordial hill of symbol of Egypt is the step pyramid. They're all similar. And then
that's good, because I say, look, people are lazy these days. They rather go to a YouTube video and watch an hour and a half of a YouTube that covers a subject that has at least 20 hours hours of
I
information.
love YouTube videos.
I like them too, but it's condensed
Watch them all day
information.
long.
It's not even,
Actually, that's the first thing I do. I watch a YouTube video every morning.
yeah, YouTube videos are okay, but it's a condensed version. It's just like watching a movie. Think about how much they cut out from the movie. You only get the best parts that they like. They don't give you the whole thing. And that's why I like you, Damien, because you actually have a website. You have pictures to bring it up. You share your knowledge. You go in depth with it. And you don't do what ifs or theories or possibilities. You go on exactly what the information says, and you go off of the, like, I hate when people say all archaeologists are bad. I hate when they put terms into it, because that's just, it's the same thing when you say all black people are bad or all white people are bad. It's the same concept. Not every archaeologist is like that. Maybe there are select ones that are assholes and try to gatekeep information, but for the majority of the part, most of them do not speak because they don't like to be ridiculed and passed. Even if you have right information, correct information with proof, people would still ridicule you for it. People would do.
Well, and then people have to against me. People have to talk shit against me, or they give me death threats. I mean, I show information and they're like, you're an atheist, you deserve to die. I'm like, what the hell?
No, or they call you a demon or something like that. Yeah.
Or
I've had this one person who was Native American say, I'm trying to remove their culture. I'm explaining stuff. I'm not trying to remove your culture.
That's one of the things I'm with you on that, because like one thing that I do is I like to stick to what I've researched. I can't think for everybody, and I can't ask everybody's questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We could continue on the next podcast where you left off, and then
if you want to, we can do that. Yeah, if you want to leave off right here and then talk about it.
We can go to another one, because I would like to do, since we're talking about mounds and mountains, I have one where I explain how I think all of them are sort of related.
Yeah, let's do that. That's actually a good topic, because I've actually been to a lot of mounds here in the States. Like I've been around. That's why I was telling you, Fat Jesus, I like to let him speak on what because he has a full presentation every time he presents his stuff. So I like to let him speak, and then at the end, I like to give my question, because he actually, what I've noticed about you, Damien, is you ask questions, what you kind of in a way insinuate types of questions that have been asked towards you actually, and then you answer it in your blog, so you can see where the information came. See, I noticed that. I'm telling you, I read your stuff. I do my research behind every guest that I have, everybody that I speak with. I do my investigations on them as far as what they're about, what they like, all this stuff. That's why I said earlier, I know you taken poster boards out, sat on the corner of the streets and said, I'm an atheist and happy not to be with God or to believe in God. How about you? I've seen you post stuff like that. I don't like to have guests on my show, and I don't like the bare minimum. I don't do the bare minimum of researching what they're about. I like to know.
Yeah, and I even have one that's, speaking of the totem poles and stuff we were talking about.
Yeah,
I have one where my showing this was, one is like a religious, like a thing where it's a column but it's Christian, and yet it looks very similar to the Native American column or totem pole. And I'm holding a sign in front of both of them. One of it just says, I'm an atheist, friendly neighborhood atheist, and the other one I can't read right now, but
you almost got the Spider-Man colors on.
Man, I'm telling you, I've been looking at, like, I'm telling you, I know a lot of people do podcasts. A lot of people want to be podcasters and all this. Everybody wants their name to be out there. I don't know why. So many people want to be famous. They want to be hey, I came up where Atlantis came from, or I came up how they built the pyramids. You are never going to know, because we never seen it with our own eyes. And depictions and photographs and all that stuff is worth 1,000 words. So we're never going to get the truth. So everybody fighting about how the pyramids were built, how about just give out all the ideas on how they were built, and then eliminate the other possibilities, meaning that you have to go through each one of them and try that specific way and see if you could build one. Until then, everybody just needs to shut the hell up and let the theories just carry on. In fact, matter of fact, we talk about sources all the time. Herodotus actually talks about how the pyramids were built. He gives a description. So if I'm going to go off of anybody that talks about anything that's built with pyramids and stuff like that, I'm going to go off of him. He's the closest guy to it. He's the father of historian. He's considered the father of historians. So I go off of those sources. And that's why I said, I looked at your stuff and I noticed you almost take what you've been almost engaged with, as far as people coming up to you, talking to you and stuff like that. You put it in your blog, and then you give the answers and you say, look, this is what this says, and you look for similarities. And that's what you do. You look for the signs and symbols and all that other stuff, and you piece it together. That's why I don't even when I'm on social media, when I'm talking shit mostly to people, it's only for my entertainment. It's only really for my entertainment because I already know what I know. I've done the research. I've dug deep into it. I don't have to entertain your stupidity, but I will because it's fun. Because I want to. Because other people will look at it and they will be like, "Oh, damn, this dude. I want to see what this dude really said," and they'll go do it. They won't tell me, but that's what they'll do. Because sometimes I actually have people in my DM say, "Hey, bro, that was pretty funny what you did with that guy, but I didn't know about this. Can you tell me more?" And I'll give them a couple of books and so on and so forth. I actually bought a couple of books that you recommended. I have in my library now that I'm gonna. So I only stick to what I know. That's
I love rabbit holes.
Most people, I don't, and I tell you why. Because you don't. There's no time. There's not enough time in the world to do it. There is not enough time in the world to do all the research that you want. So going down that rabbit hole is just, you're making me personally, it would take time away from my life to do that. I want to know the facts. I don't want to know where the rabbit hole is. If you can just lead me straight to the facts and give me the book, that's it. I don't even care. There's 7.7 billion people on this planet. Entertaining 7.7 billion people's opinions is something I'm not going to do. So that's why I stick straight to the facts.
He has the facts. I got the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you got the rabbit hole. I don't even speak about them. I don't even like them in my presence. I don't, because it's a waste of time. I've been down rabbit holes before. And when you've been down there and you research as much as I can say that I've researched, you would not like rabbit holes. You'll be like, "No, this is a waste of time." You'll want to argue with the person just for fun more, because you'll see how stupid people are. There's a lot of stupid, ignorant people out there.
There's not stupid people. There is
stupid people. There are a lot of people that are uninformed. My goal is not to argue. The reason I go on is all activism. It's all because I want to empower people. It goes back to my feeling in general. As an anarchist, not as an atheist, as an anarchist, we're all equal. We're all the same. And I want all of us to be empowered. The power to the people. And the way we empower people is, I agree with you, not rabbit holes, but the real information. And so that's why I want to share stuff that helps empower us.
Totally agree. I had to mute Rebirth. I didn't want to hear him anymore.
No, I was talking to my son over there. I was saying that, like I was saying, that the idea of rabbit holes is just, it's crazy because of the fact that just like right now, if you look at this episode, you had asked some questions, Fat Jesus, right? And Damien was trying to stick to a point, right? You was leading him down into a rabbit hole. He already had the facts. You know what I'm saying? So instead of wasting your time digging in that rabbit hole trying to get there, exhaust yourself, your mind, mentality, and all this other stuff, your physical aspects of your body trying to figure it out, the answer was already there. So now you went to go look for a diamond that's already on top of the soil. You see what I'm saying? You're looking for that gem that's already on top of the soil. You don't have to go digging for it because it's right there. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I look at rabbit holes like that. I'm not going to waste my time digging 300 feet in the ground for a small piece of diamond, right? That may give me just a little bit of information. But the diamond that's on top of the soil gives me the whole enchilada. Now I got everything. Now I don't even have to worry about that. That other diamond is just, I already knew that. But I dug through this rabbit hole to get that little bit of piece of information that I didn't even have to worry about, because that little bit of piece of information was staring me right in my face. That's why I don't like rabbit holes. I spent years, years down rabbit holes. And I was like, why are these people talking about it? There's nothing in the sources.
Damien, I keep telling him that not everybody has a high IQ like him.
But it's not about a high IQ, because I think IQ has to do with just
not everybody's like him.
Almost.
Well, but I agree with you. I don't really buy into the IQ thing. I have 135, which is considered to be the lowest of the geniuses. But I don't consider that why. Because I used to think differently. I used to be not informed, so that being intelligent had nothing to do with me being informed.
Yeah,
being informed, like he said, is to really want the truth. It's realizing that, there's a bunch of stuff I can learn, but do I want to learn the truth or just learn stuff that's fun? I mean, it's fun to learn stuff about Lord of the Rings, but that's not going to help me in my life or give me real knowledge. So, I mean, there's some people that are like experts at knowing the whole world and thinking of Spider-Man, but that's not going to. And I also feel, though, it's not wrong if some people want to fill their world with the understanding of Spider-Man. I don't, like I said, because being an anarchist
or Star Wars,
I don't value judge people's thing. But if you wouldn't want to talk about the world or what really happened or really understanding, don't bring up Spider.
Or
You know what I'm
Star
saying?
Wars. Star
Or
Wars is a
Star
whole
Wars.
world. Yeah, it's a whole world because they got languages, music,
And religions.
dances,
Even The Mandalorian, the show that
outfits.
just came out, I saw it. And that's like a religious cult. And if you read the backstory, they used to be theistic and then they stopped being theistic, but kept a lot of the symbolism and stuff. So they're kind of like a spiritual, non-religious cult.
Where do you think they get most of their ideas from? They get it from
Religion.
yeah.
George
from
Lucas got it from
ancient
probably
ideas.
Joseph Campbell, because Joseph Campbell talked a lot about mythology and how they're connected. Although some of the things like the hero's journey, I think that Joseph Campbell comes up with is not a real thing. It's more something he just kind of made up. That's not as universal as he was trying to say. But I do think, as you'd see, I kind of take a mythological structuralist view of mythology where I try to break it down into its mytheme parts or ideas, like the pre-creation, creation, but explain the elements of darkness and then water. And so I break up the stuff because when you do that, it allows you to see clearly, like he was talking about, where the diamonds are. Instead of just digging around in a big haystack, you just remove all the hay and whatever has fallen below the hay, you can just now see it better. Because, like I said, if you were to say, well, which religions are connected, that's a lot harder. If you start looking at these common elements, like every religion, practically creation myth starts in darkness, and then the next thing is water, and then the earth. You start to, well, wait a minute. No matter who they say did it, because everybody says different, how they say the mound or dirt happened, all in the firmament, how exactly that happened, all of it's different, but it's not really different because it's, in other words, could all of that have happened in that sequence and by accident all over the earth? No. The answer to me is no. It could not have happened. It had to have been spread. So either, like you said, there's only two choices. Either it's somehow inherent and everyone knows this from knowledge, or it had to have been taught to people. And since we know that children are not born with the knowledge of all this stuff, that's not how it happens, then it was taught, which is my feeling is religion is a cultural product and moved throughout the whole world as a cultural migration. And you can break it down and look at different things and watch that happen. Even in current times, like the Silk Road past Buddhism, or how, Christians spread with the Roman Empire once it turned non-pagan. And then how, Islam, spread once it, moved around. People didn't just randomly in areas become Islamic. They were in a sense taken over, and then that became the religion, or through trade, because it's not always war. Everyone thinks like it's like the greatest war is what made religion. No, sometimes, it's nothing to do with that. It's just trading, like sharing ideas. We're doing here, right? We're sharing ideas. When you share ideas, you get influence. I mean, we're human. It's part of that group think we do, So I always say that it's not possible to not have beliefs, because some atheists try to say they don't have beliefs. That's absolute nonsense. They believe that. So beliefs are an inherent thing that we do. The question is not, are you going to believe things? You're going to. The question is what you're believing accurate? Is what you're believing beneficial?
Yeah.
Is what you're believing good for your well-being or the well-being of others? So that's more important to me, is it good for us? Is it good to think of racism? No, it's detrimental, even to racists. It's not good for the economy, even for racists. There's ideas that are just inherently detrimental to all humanity, even the ones doing it. Just like, if you force your ideas on people, that's not good for even you. So, I mean, I feel like that's what we should be focusing on, is not if we're going to believe. We're all going to believe something.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe, okay, let me just make this clear. Do you believe in the great architect of the universe? Do you believe like in a supreme being that's overall the universe?
No.
Okay.
I think that the universe is a random thing that happened. Even the earth, like the fact that the earth got life, some people feel it's just because of our place, distance from the sun. So they'll say every planet that's this far from the sun is an earth habitable planet. And that's actually inaccurate.
Yeah, they call it the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, but that's not true. That's only one factor. The other thing is we have a too big moon. Our moon is too big for the size of our earth. What that does is it makes currents. It's currents in the ocean, which they believe gave rise or helped give rise to life. Without that big moon, we would have a problem. problem. But it's even worse than that. If we didn't have Jupiter, Jupiter actually creates the way that the things spin because it's so freaking huge compared to us. And it's where it's at relates to why the Earth and the moon do the things it does. If you don't have a Jupiter, you have some problems. If you don't have a moon, you probably don't have life. The moon our size. It's not just how far you are from the sun.
With that thought, there's an asteroid belt that lies between Jupiter and Mars that their hypothesis on it, because nobody knows if there was a planet there or a planet forming, they're saying. But
yeah, there probably was.
It's more leaning towards a planet, right?
Probably, yeah.
But with what you're saying, let's put that together. If there was a planet there, would Earth be Earth the way it is today?
No, probably not. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so just like the fact
maybe
that
by design thing that was destroyed.
Well, I would say that it looks like design because we're now here and we're trying to look backwards. But the thing is, all these random things happen which allowed. It's like looking at a hole in the ground and then it fills with water and say that hole was perfect for the water.
Because we exist, we would say by design. But if we didn't exist, then no.
Well, I'm just making a comment.
No
but
design.
The fact of existing is a random thing. Yeah. That's like when some people think, well, every planet must have aliens. No, because for life to happen, there's so many things that have to happen. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. It's also that we have a black hole that looks like in almost every, universe area, there's these too many black holes. And these black holes seem to be spinning everything. So the black holes also may be causing things like dark matter and dark energy to push everything around. And it's just pushing everything around that makes these zones that they talk about. So, which I know when you look at all this stuff, it looks like, man, so many things are involved to make something happen. But that doesn't mean, that's like rain. Rain happens because of an ice particle that happened in the sky. Even in areas that's not cold, way up in the atmosphere. It's an ice particle because the moisture grabs together onto something and then becomes ice, falls as rain. Or if it stays cold below, it falls as snow. Or sometimes turns into a snowflake or whatever. But for that to happen, you have to have something for the ice to form around, meaning it takes dust or a miniature meteorite or some element in the air that the moisture clings onto. It's almost like if you stick a stick or a string in sugar water, it makes all these crystals. They glob on the string or stick to make, one of those candies. So it's like thinking, well, because of that, the rain must be having some deity making the dust there so that it can make rain. Well, that's not, it's just a random things that are interacting to me. So no, I do think that there is obvious things that are all working together to make life. And it is not one process. It's absolutely amazing to me, but it's not a spirit or a deity or a thing, even though I agree, man, it sure seems like took a lot of things to make life happen.
You're right.
That's perfect. I like how you put that. Well,
I used to go 15 years on the street.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And I didn't have anything to show people. I had to just be able to talk. That's also like you said, how I'm able to stop people and go back to what I'm saying. Yeah, because I've been on the street where not online where you get to block people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I like your information, because you do your due diligence and you make sure that you present it in a way. It's long, but it's supposed to be longer. Like I said, a lot of people will go watch a YouTube video about a subject and it'll be an hour and a half, but there's about 20 hours of information that they didn't get to go over because they don't have that much time, and they don't do parts. And like I said, most people are podcasters. Most of these podcasters, if you notice, they jump on whatever is the biggest subject at the moment. They don't talk about different things. They literally, this is popular right now, let's all jump on that. And then you see the same 30, 40, 50 different podcasters saying the same exact thing over and over again, and you're just like, what the heck? So at this point, I don't even pay attention to them. Go ahead and I'm going to end the show. And like I always say,
I don't think I'll have anything as detailed as he has.
No, 100%. Just get some stuff together. And when
if we were competing, he would beat me like by 1,000%.
No, just get some stuff together.
But as you know, I'm not competing. That's what people understand. I don't know.
I was saying if we were to compete, you would beat me at 1,000%.
Okay.
because you have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah,
And
he does. He does.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's been doing this for years, and that's why I like the information. You know what I'm saying? It really gives a background of what he does. Like I actually took a lot of notes. I have a whole notepad right here on my second screen of some of the stuff that he said. Because right after this, I'm gonna go do some research, and then I'm gonna go get something to eat. I'm gonna come back and read,
I'm
and then
going to bed
get ready for
after
the
this.
All right, then. Like I always say, you know what I'm saying? Knowledge is power.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, anti-theism, anti-religionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudohistory, pseudomorality, things that are found in religion.